2 o'clock. Is everybody ready to get going? All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda.
How about roll call?
Oh, roll call. Well, I skipped that one. Please can do roll call.
Foster Sawyer.
Here.
Dan Richer.
Here.
Orland Paulson.
Here.
Laverne Cook.
Yep.
Robert Akers.
Here.
Tim Rogers.
Here.
Chuck Jasper.
Here, just for record, I'm going to leave about 10 to 3. I have a dentist appointment. I'll be back after that.
Sandra Bashara.
Here.
Steve Hasenorl.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Approval of agenda. Or if anybody wants to make changes to the agenda, or a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Who motioned? Steve?
Jasper, second. Okay, we got a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next item is meetings of the minutes, to approve those or see if we have any changes to those. Our last meeting was March 19th, and does anybody have any comments on those, something they want to discuss? Or does somebody want to make a motion to approve?
Well, I think we need to have a motion in order to have a discussion.
Yeah, I guess.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting, approve the draft minutes.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the meetings. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think we started before 2 o'clock.
No, I didn't. I had 2 o'clock exactly.
On that?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We had a special meeting on the Didymo back on April 22nd. I don't know that we need to. Do we need to approve those, Denise?
It's not
I don't know how we're gonna do it.
There wasn't a quorum.
Not at that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Just for informational purposes, we did have a meeting April 22nd where we'll talk about it a little bit later in the agenda, but we had a meeting talking about Didymo and Rapid Creek Dakota, and we'll have a little report on that later. Okay, next up is payment of bills and transfer of funds. Denise?
So you have your list of bills in your board packet. The only thing that I wanted to point out is the post office box that came due. I paid it because it was due by April 30th, and this was back in January of 2013. The board had decided to have a P.O. box just so they have a permanent address. Should you, at that time, the contract with RCAC was a temporary 6-month contract, so that's why you had the P.O. box. And I guess if that's something that we no longer need, we need to have that discussion. But anyway, so I went ahead and paid it on my own. Just
Okay.
felt like I had to make that decision.
I just had one comment on there with Director Bashara and Director Rogers, myself. I think we were both signed up for the
Hydrology conference.
hydrology conference. So you subtracted our stuff. I got called away for work and we couldn't find a replacement, so we just subtracted
Right,
the cost.
right. It was subtracted out. You'll see that it was subtracted out. It was 70 because I registered you at the early bird rate. So
Yep.
I thought we agreed that if somebody got called out on emergency or something, we wouldn't hold them responsible for something. It was just if they didn't show up.
Yeah.
They didn't show up and
I'll be honest, I didn't notify them that I wasn't able to show up, so that I kind of.
Didn't that, we agree to that?
Yeah, mine was just a work-related thing, and I was okay having it subtracted, so it's no big deal.
And mine was Family Matters. I had to, my father had been very ill.
Any other questions on the bills due?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just, this is kind of unrelated, Denise, but I wasn't able to pull those bills due on the audit up on my computer. Do you have an extra copy there? For some reason or other, it wouldn't let me. No, I don't have it.
Look in
Here,
there.
look in here. Okay.
This one should be right there.
Oh, sorry about that. Found it here. Thank you.
Well, you're looking at, Director Richard, did you have some questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Publishing, I thought we discussed this and we were just gonna send it over to the respective papers and for their info and we could publish or not.
That was not decided. It was discussed, I had mentioned it, but it was not discussed. Also, there were notices that do have to go into the paper, and such as the notice of vacancies, the public notice for the Didymo.
We don't have that on the agenda either, do we?
No.
Okay. Let's make it a point, we'll get that on the agenda next time to take action on the newspaper
Okay.
issue. Director Richard, anything else?
Yeah, membership dues for Black Hills RC&D.
This is something that comes up every year. Last month, the board had requested that I give a summary report of Black Hills Regional Multiple Use Coalition. I did a report on that and also one on Black Hills Resource Conservation and Development. And I also forwarded the board minutes of both of those meetings so that you have that information for you to decide if that's something that you feel that West Dakota needs to sponsor or to not sponsor. We do have Denny here from Black Hills RC&D. If you want to ask any specific questions of Black Hills RC&D, I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer them.
The problem I got is we haven't made a decision yet. We got a dues here for $100.
Make a decision on whether we're going to continue those
Continue.
payments?
Yeah, we haven't made that
So
decision
it
yet,
automatically
but
was
we've
paid
got
when we didn't
membership
authorize
dues.
payment.
You can move the bill pay to the bottom of the agenda if you want, but you've already approved the agenda, so. But you still can, you can make that action if you want to. Well, it's not, actually, that's not even a report on here. So, but it was in your board packet.
Yeah, it wasn't a vote packet, but we haven't made an agreement. Haven't made a motion, haven't voted. We've already,
Well, you can have
we
the.
voted earlier to get out of it. Now we haven't taken a vote to get back in, but we got membership dues, so.
Yeah.
Well, you can have that discussion now on the bill pay.
I'm gonna vote no.
I'll make a motion to pay without.
Yeah,
Yeah,
next
make a-
month.
You can make a motion to pay the bill pay minus that and have that moved to the next agenda if you so
Okay, I make a
desire.
motion that we approve the payments except for that and we'll put that on the next agenda.
Motion on the floor?
When you say that, you mean except for Black Hills RC&D?
Right.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, we got,
Okay, so that's a friendly amendment to,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
so we got a motion to approve the bill pay with the exception of removing the Black Hills RC&D membership due and having that moved to the agenda for the next meeting for discussion. And we have a second by Jasper. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, who opposed?
Let's do a-
Orland
let's
and,
do a roll call vote.
okay. Okay, so the vote is for approving the bill pay minus Black Hills RC&D.
And moving that to the agenda for the next week. Discussion, okay?
Yeah.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Richer,
Nay.
Paulson,
Aye.
Cook,
No.
Jasper,
Aye.
Hazenorl,
Aye.
Bashara,
Nay.
Akers.
Aye.
5 in favor of approving the bill pay minus Black Hills RC&D. Motion passed.
All right, but we'll deal with that next meeting. And the payment, the approved new payment stuff. All right, financial report, Denise?
So, you have your financial report. This is the current financial standing as of today. So, the combination of bank accounts is actually, today it's $489,000, but your financial standing reflects the bill pay, today's bill pay taken out. So basically it's 466,000 at the 100 back in. So $466,953.37 is your current financial standing for your bank accounts. It is projected, based on the budget, that we will see another $102,000 come in from Pennington County for tax revenue. The remaining obligation of your current committed funds through FY14 is $261,096.98. The remaining obligated budget is $106,000 and some change. At our next meeting in July, I will probably be requesting to move some of that money into uncommitted projects, just so you have a better idea of what's left out there. It's probably not going to be spent. We'll go over that more in July. But so anyway, today your total unobligated is $201,000 plus a few dollars. You have your future obligations. If you look on the back of your page, you'll see that it lists out the committed funds and your future obligations. So you have the itemized list there. I just created a summary page for you. So your out years, you're looking at about $72,000 that you've already committed. This is for a School of Mines project, continuing study of the crystalline aquifers. And then also $30,000 that is committed to USGS for the groundwater modeling project. And then I have another number. You probably won't see this again on this sheet. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea that there's $103,000 expected of revenue. That includes that $102,000, but just so you know that there's some other income from miscellaneous taxes, like our delinquent interest and penalties. That all comes in there. So there's a little bit more, but that's not anything that the board really needs to count on. So you count on the $102,000. So that's your current financial standing. Does anyone have any questions over that?
Just one question on the obligated funds. Is the Canyon Lake that we set aside for matching $50,000, is that included in that $261,000?
That's right.
Yes, if you look on the back page, the itemized list, it is down there. It's
Okay. Anybody else have
It's
any
the
questions?
eighth one down there.
Know how much money we got, so. All right, no questions, we'll move on to the next topic, which is auditor's report.
So the auditor's report, since we fall under the $250,000, we do not have to do a full-fledged audit, which is about $5,000. We just have to do a financial review. This is basically very similar to what we did. It's similar to what we did last year. It's about $500 as opposed to $5,000. Please keep in mind that this report is based off of the budget, the FY13 budget, which was generated by Black Hills Council of Local Governments. We've kind of changed the budget format and everything, so next year it's going to better reflect our projects. It'll itemize our committed funds a little bit differently in more detail.
Is there any questions on the audit?
Actually, Tim, can we get a motion to approve the financial report and the auditor's report?
Can we combine that in one?
If
Or do
you
them separate?
if you want to move, you can move to do so, yeah.
Sure. I would make a motion we approve the financial statements and the audit report.
Second.
Here we got a motion on the floor to approve the audit report. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And I don't think I clearly stated his motion. His motion was to approve you got that, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did. Thank
I
you.
think I missed part of it. All right. All right. We're moving along to old business, Trinity Eco Prayer Park project. Ken Steichen. If I said that last time, right? You're up. Sorry.
Do you want your presentation back up there, or you?
That's fine.
It's just rotating through right now.
Okay. I guess I'd just start by summarizing some of the things that I said last time, or open it to questions, however would work best for the group here.
As opening it up, you gave a presentation before on the project downtown, putting in the park, and I think your request was, your basic request is for $25,000 for the project. And if you have some more information to provide to the board, that would be greatly appreciated, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay. I guess the main thing, there was a question, well, I guess I would summarize some of the things that we're doing with the park. The reason I came to this group is because I feel that what we're doing is very in line with the mission of the West Dakota Water Development District, which says its intent is to support entities that furnish financial, educational, or other aid to any water project in the district that encourages better utilization of the water resources through water conservation, proper water management, protection of water quality, and beneficial use of municipal and irrigation and water for recreational purposes. We kind of feel that the park does that by educating and inspiring people to stop overlooking the value of water and to protect Rapid Creek, by reducing unnecessary stormwater runoff, which ends up in Rapid Creek, and then decreases the amount of treated drinkable water being used on lawns and other purposes. The actual park is kind of a disguised stormwater basin. It holds up to 18,000 cubic feet of stormwater and can handle a 100-year flood storm event with little or no standing water. And then interpreted signage will highlight the park's water stewardship features and the use of native plants to conserve water. We also hope it will be a data collection site and an educational destination for school field trips, and possibly host sustainability outreach workshops. We have probably the biggest update is that we've begun. We had groundbreaking on May 6th, and construction is underway with projected completion of August 30th. we're pouring footings yesterday, and well, maybe today if it wasn't too wet. And the request of $25,000 is specifically to deal with the bioswales and the drain field. And the total cost of that is close to $66,000, but we're just looking for the $25,000. There was a question about how long the park would be there. And I went back to our foundation and had a conversation. We had a conversation about that. They said that to keep in mind that the church that's the foundation is related to just celebrated its 100th year anniversary. This is not a new entity. It's just blown into town to do something like this. And they said that they, were willing to hear from you what you would be willing to give and what you would consider to be reasonable conditions for that funding purpose. So I guess that kind of gets us up to speed of where things are at, and I would open it to further questions.
I know some other people asked some questions and stuff, but one of my questions was, and I was trying to, looking at the different drawings that you provided, is I'm trying to understand how the capture system underneath works. Is there a drain field that's got consolidated soil that the water retains in there, that stormwater comes in, and how much stormwater comes in from off of the city into the site that's stored there?
Right. I know I might do it right there. Can we stop that?
I have it on rotating medium.
Sorry about that.
No.
That's probably good enough there.
Is that the one?
Yeah, I think that's good.
The reason I ask, a little bit of background, I like the concept that you got an area that serves kind of as a sediment retention to clean the water. And also in this discussion, I noticed that you also have a drain coming out of that. So my interest is when you have dirty stormwater coming into something and you've got a sediment trap and you turned it into a park, I like that concept. And that water is either going to seep into the ground and go back into the groundwater as a cleaner source, or it's going to come off here and drain off the field and the thing. And I'm just curious on how that works.
Okay.
I don't have an understanding of that.
Okay. This is Hardee's over here. There's a church parking lot over here. This is a church building right here. So you've got, predominantly impervious surfaces all throughout. The water from probably about half of Hardee's parking lot comes down this alley here. Also quite a bit of the church parking lot, the water comes down the alley and just naturally enters into this corner right here. So we're using that natural flow of water that's been coming in already and kind of diverted in two directions here. The main flow, there's a trench drain here that the water will flow into this area that's designated as a wetlands area. But I think, I can't remember if it was this group we're talking about, it's going to be subterranean wetlands. It's not designed to have water holding it above the surface of the ground. This entire area will be like an intermittent stream bed, predominantly with 3 to 6 inch river rock in through the center here, then also up in this area here, where the water will continue to flow. Some of the water will also be diverted into this area here, and this is where you can see some lines there that shows the drain field. And that is where the water will just soak into that drain field through natural means. And there is I think it's about 18-inch, I'm not 100% sure of that, of prepared soil that has rock and then compost, so it's, allows the water to seep in and hold in that area, kind of retaining area. Then there's also an overflow drain that allows it to continue this way. And then there is, if things get too wild, too much, too fast, there is a beehive type drain here that will go into the city's stormwater system. But my engineers tell me that should not happen. up to a 100-year storm event, that it should be able to handle that amount. Does that kind of get at what
Yes,
you're talking about?
I was kind of looking at the technical aspect and how the soil was going to be consolidated, and you kind of explain that.
Yeah, that was a layman's explanation of the technical aspects. I'm not an engineer.
Other questions? I know there were some questions on.
Okay, I've got several things. As a church entity or related to a church entity and the division of government entities combining with church entities is really kind of frowned upon. Separation of church and state is used so much. And by funding a project like this, we are combining with a church to create something, which is then saying that we condone your church over this church. And that I cannot, as a government entity, say we cannot get involved with the church entity. Second of all, too, God created a very, very interesting filtering system for our water called earth. And as the water flows through the ground, it filters out the system. So I believe in letting God's system work, too.
Can I respond?
Yes?
Okay, I didn't know if you were done. I didn't want to cut in. The first point, there's a couple different ways to look at that, and one of them is this, that technically the property is not owned by the church. It's owned by a foundation, a 501c3 organization, which is a nonprofit organization. I'm telling you, legally.
No, I understand that
there's a
too.
difference.
But Trinity Eco Prayer Park says an awful lot.
The other thing is that your objection would be similar to saying that if the YMCA came to you and asked you to help them do something, that you wouldn't fund that project because the C in YMCA stands for Christian, and it's a Christian organization.
Right.
So you would say that anything that would have any affiliation with a religious organization?
In today's society, yes.
In light of the Supreme Court decision on May 5th, where they upheld the right of the town of Greece to have public prayer prior to a meeting, that has taken...
That's not funding.
That's even... Well, okay.
Okay.
I'm not...
That's not. They said that we had the right to pray, and that did not take taxpayer dollars.
Okay, I can give you another legal argument here then. To decide to not fund an organization based on a belief system is a discriminatory practice that could be subject to legal recourse the same way as praying before a city meeting. I'm not saying that could happen, but that's the legal issue works.
Is
it cuts
this type
both ways.
of project opens up a can of worms for West Dakota Water Board, and whether we are willing to open that can of worms or not, whether we have the funds to battle any lawsuits that could come about from us financing this project. I don't know what could become of what all of this is. And I'm looking out for the interests of the taxpayers not having to pay legal fees of any type by funding this. Now, I totally believe in prayer. I think this is a worthwhile project, don't get me wrong. But I do not think, as a government entity, spending taxpayer dollars on this project is a wise investment in this environment that we have today.
Thanks, Director Sherry. Does anybody else have comments?
I'd like to say I understand that position and I respect it, and it's just a difference of opinion. Sure.
Yes, I'm the one that raised the objection at the last meeting, the fact it would be taxpayer dollars supporting a private group. And I would say you can remove my objection by placing a conservation easement on the property. And I'd go so far as to say you wouldn't have to do it in perpetuity, but I would expect it to be done for a very significant period of time And when I say a significant period of time, I would suggest like 25 minimum years, more in the order of 50 years. And you say the church has been there 100 years, fine. You know, if you put a conservation easement on the property so that it's going to stay in essentially this type of condition for 50 years, that would remove my objection to using taxpayer funds to support what I see, as I said the last time, a very worthwhile project, which I see supports exactly what we with this board are supposed to be doing. You know, I understand Ms. Bashar's objections, and I think as a public, in this case, it then becomes a public project that we're supporting because of a conservation easement, then, like I say, it removes my objection. I think it would address hers to some extent, maybe not entirely.
Director Jasper, at our last meeting did you, and I can't remember, I'm trying to recall, did you have concerns about public use as well? Or was it more of the conservation?
Well, it was the public use that it could be taken away at any time, and by putting a conservation easement on it, I think that dedicates it at least to public use for conservation purposes, and that's what I see it being for.
Yes, I agree.
I did extensive research into that that model that you suggested, the conservation easement, and a conservation easement normally transfers the title of the property to another entity, usually a governmental entity.
Right.
So we would not be able to do that because we would continue to have ownership of the property.
Well, I understand. National Wildlife Federation does it all the time. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation does it all the time. They get title to the property, they place the conservation easement on it, and then they turn around and deed the property to some other organization. Here, if the organization owns the property, places a conservation easement on it, puts that conservation easement on it for a period of time in some other organization's name, you accomplish the same thing.
My understanding was that it can only be tied to a deed, which goes, the actual easement can only be tied to a deed, which means the ownership transfers to another organization. That,
Well,
that was the way.
You can do it if you do the proper paper passing, yes.
The foundation said that they were willing to maybe consider some type of arrangement, but it wouldn't be like the easement. The concept would be similar. It'd probably be a written agreement between the foundation and the West Dakota Water Development District that ensures the existence of the park for a certain term, but it'd just be an agreement that's drawn up between the two organizations. The title would not come into the question at all. And then there also could be the potential for a provision, relates to the return of funding, prorated based on if something didn't happen, if that term was not fulfilled. But the term would also have to be commensurate with the commitment on the part of this organization in respect to the total value of the project.
Director.
Yes.
I guess a couple of questions. If this project were brought to us by the downtown organization or the Fish and Game or School of Mines, would it be a feasible project under our terms? Trying to separate the two issues here.
I think it would, and to me, the separation of state and church doesn't bother me so much as our investment into the project and its sustaining project.
That's my second thing. If it meets it, my view is to assure some way that what could personally be, if the property were sold or changed in any use of this, the money would be returned to the district. That would be that would be my concern with guaranteeing that somebody doesn't come along and offer the church a couple of $1 million for the property. They go, yeah, we're going to sell it. That money would come back to us.
I appreciate your opinion.
But also, I mean,
Let me finish.
okay, if this
Director
group is
Bashara,
willing to take
Director
all.
Bashara, let me finish, and then you can proceed in just a second. My concern is that we have the investment put in place, and I respect your opinion on the church and state, but that doesn't bother me as much as our investment into the project. Go ahead.
If they're willing to take all legal responsibilities if we are sued for donating any money to them, in other words, if some group comes and sues West Dakota Water Board on this project, you're liable for all legal fees.
Why would they sue us?
Because of separation from church and state. And who knows what other reasons they could come up with. Because of that, actually, if you rename the project, I mean, there's a lot of different things you'd have to do in order to get a lot of different types of atheist groups approval on this project.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I got, the biggest objection I got to it is giving taxpayer money to private funds. I got the same problem as giving Pennington County taxpayer money to federal entities. I got the same problem here as giving it to a private organization. It's not public, and I understand I understand as the way it's been briefed that it will be open to the public for anyone to use it for practically anything they want to use it for within reason, but that's still, and I understand in the scheme of things, $25,000 is pissant money, but it's still public funding going to private, and you know, as far as you know, as long as there's no crosses hanging out there or Buddhists or anything like that, I guess I don't have a problem with to make prayer. Could be changed to meditation or whatever you want to do. The biggest problem I got is going to a private organization without some kind of guarantee that, like Chuck said, this is going to sit there for 50 years in this condition, and if somebody offers them $2 million for that block, they're not going to sell it out from under us and lose the taxpayers $25,000.
Okay, I also have a question. Who will be policing the park for vagrants and stuff that are going there?
The operation, the day-to-day operation of the park will be handled by the church, delegated through the people from the church that will be doing that. And then if there's need for, you know, private security or something like that, or the police, I mean, it's public space, you know, that would be used as well.
That word public space, privately owned public space, is kind of a oxymoron, really, because it's either private or it's either public.
I believe the
dedicated to public use.
The former M. Hill or Hanson Larson bike trail area has a similar arrangement, if I'm not mistaken, where the city works with private people to give public space availability. So there's precedent in our city to do that.
Yeah, that can be arranged.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I agree that just as long as there's some, this is exactly what we're supposed to do. But unless we've got some kind of written guarantee that when we give this public funding to a private organization, that it's going to stay that way, then I'm not going to be able to support it.
Ken, I was trying to catch the transition from the conservation concept. Were you proposing a different one? I was trying to follow that.
Well, my understanding is the conservation easement model doesn't work. From what the legal advice I got, I talked to Nature Conservancy, I talked to the NRCS, and they couldn't find anything in their resources that matched this type of situation, where the same landowner retains right to the property, because usually that's an agreement with another organization that then takes title of the property.
And also,
I understand that, but I thought you suggested something to the effect that there would be some type of long-term agreement that it would remain in a conservation type of setting, and then, but if you guys turned around in 2 years and decided you could sell it, that you would refund those funds. Is that
The foundation was open to using that as a model potentially. But, you know, the flip side is, we don't want to sell our soul for what we're doing too. I mean, that's, you know, this is America. You do what you do, and an organization like this, for what the director here described as a pissant amount of money, doesn't have the authority to change the vision of some private enterprise, private group. So, you know, we don't get the $25,000, we walk away and do something else. This was just a resource that
Yes.
was made available, and that's,
And I was
that's
also
why we're
gonna say,
here.
$25,000 in the state of South Dakota is no, to the taxpayer, is no piddly amount of money. In some cases, it's the year's income, and more than the year's income of a lot of these people.
I was quoting one of the directors. I didn't say I agreed with
Yeah,
that.
I know, I said, and I was getting on him for saying
I said
that.
on the big scheme of things.
Yeah, on the
Right,
big scheme of
right,
things.
and that, yeah, that was your
But
comment.
the thing is we look at everything as, oh, in government, this is a small amount. But to the taxpayers, all these small amounts add up to really big, huge amounts.
You're right, that's more than what some people make in a year. That's fair.
So I just wanted to put that in perspective.
With the foundation, would you be able to come back with us with some type of agreement
Well,
that we could look at?
they-
Because I think what our position that I'm hearing from everybody is that we would like to see some type of commitment that the money we invest into this project is going to be sustaining, or if it's not, that there be a return of that investment. And I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody.
I get,
Not just,
Excuse me.
Director Rogers, this just occurs to me that a lot of different organizations will have what they call MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, between two entities like this. So that sounds like something that you may be referring to here.
Something, to some type of agreement on that.
Mhm.
but there also, if there do sell, that there should be also, not just to pay back the amount, but a penalty for breach of contract.
Are you gonna have a contract, or are you just gonna have a
I don't know, that's.
No, it'd have to be some kind of contract.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion?
Sure.
Can I make a motion that we put a 3-member study group together to work with these people to come up with something that everybody can live with?
Yes, you can make that motion.
Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion on the floor to develop a 3-person committee to discuss the project and try to come up with a resolution. And a second by the sheriff. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? All right, does that sound like something?
yeah, that sounds like a great direction, because the foundation thought that they would want input from this group to say, what are you willing to give and under what conditions? So that's exactly what you just came up with right here.
All right. Ken, thanks for coming.
Sure.
Again, this looks like a worthwhile project. We just got to work through some details.
And I appreciate you, as public servants, your thoroughness and taking care of the money of the taxpayers. I have no problems with that at all.
At least you know we're not opposed.
I get a relatively good vibe.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Chairman Rogers, who is going to be on the committee?
Oh, yeah, we better decide who's going to be on the committee. I think we got one volunteer.
He's just volunteered, man. Didn't you hear that?
Wouldn't be the first time. I'm gonna volunteer for them. Yeah, I'll do it.
We have 2 other volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
I'll help you out.
Okay, we have Akers, Bashara, and Richard as 3 volunteers. You guys could get together and try to meet with Ken. And do you have Ken's information?
Yeah, I
his
need your
phone number, email?
Yeah, I'll need your phone number, Ken.
Is the one in the
for sustainability.
All right, once we get those, we'll get those details hammered out, we'll move on to our next item, Rapid Creek 319, North Water Consulting. Make it known for the record, Mr. Jasper is leaving at 2:45, and hopefully we'll see him back. With all his team. Hello?
Morning. My name is Dave Holland. I work for North Water Consulting. I'm an engineer. One of my counterparts, Jeff Beckler, was here a couple months ago, I believe, to discuss the same project. In that time, we've met with a few other entities. We've met with Pennington County Conservation District. We've met with Black Hills RC&D. And I don't know if it was before or after we met with you, but we've also met with the city and the USGS to propose doing an EPA 319 implementation grant to work on the Rapid Creek watershed. So basically we've kind of developed the project about as far as we're comfortable going with it, just kind of bringing up some key points. But at this point we're looking for somebody that's willing to sponsor the project. Without a local sponsor, the EPA 319 program doesn't move forward. And we also aren't interested in working on a project where there isn't local support for that project. Denise asked me to come and give just a quick little 2-minute blurb about kind of a review of what we talked about before, and then open it up to discussion if you have any questions, I guess. So you're all familiar with EPA 319 project on Spring Creek. You might have read of or heard about. That's being done by another engineering company. We are here in Rapid City. We have an office right downtown Rapid City. And one of the functions of our company is to do watershed management plans. That's what we specialize in. We don't do a lot of other things. We really specialize in that. We have a couple other fields, but that's one of our specialties. And we do it through a GIS approach. And so GIS is a computer software that most people use for mapping, but we also use it for crunching data. So we put in a bunch of formulas and data into that, and we can create a map based on the data. And how that applies in this situation is the USGS has collected a lot of water quality data. The Soil Conservation District has all of the soil types and soil slopes. The City of Rapid City has a lot of GIS information about where all the streets and parking lots and buildings are, everything that would affect stormwater. The county has land use maps that tell if an area is industrial, that could be contributing certain pollutants, certain chemicals. If an area is residential, it would have other oils and greases, or restaurant or whatever. All of that data is already available. We don't have to spend a lot of time and energy. We don't have to charge the project a lot of money to be able to create this model that we could use to model the watershed. We can take the data that's already available and create basically a map of the watershed based on what we want to know. Are we worried about solids? There's a TMDL on the creek for total suspended solids. There's also some concern about temperature, and there's also a TMDL for bacteria. So we could, ask the model, are there any sources of bacteria in the watershed, and color code a map of the watershed and have it so that there's red splotches where there's potential for bacteria contamination or solids contamination. Our approach is different than many other approaches because we look at all of the land area in the watershed. We don't just look at the creek itself. So that way we don't end up doing a project that has very little impact on the creek, that could be miles from the creek and not really even uphill from the creek that anything could ever run off into it. It's our way of kind of focusing what money that we do have and it really having a real impact on the project. So that's a little bit about what we do and maybe a little bit how we're different. I guess I'll just cut it short at that and ask if anybody has any questions. But basically we're looking for a sponsor to sponsor the grant.
Director Paulson.
Yes, I need a geography lesson.
Sure.
Define for me the difference between the upper and the lower Rapid Creek. Where's the dividing line? I see the wording in here, upper Rapid Creek and lower. Where's the dividing line?
Well, I'm looking at a map in front of me. I wish I had it up in front of you. But basically, Galen, do you have a good idea where that dividing line?
It's based on the TMDL actually has different segments, and I believe it's Canyon Lake is downstream is the lower.
So we're not talking from Dakota to Rapids, we're talking Canyon Lake on down, or where?
Well, there's two TMDLs in place, and one of them goes from Canyon Lake down, and the other one actually starts further downstream. So that's the part that the state comes up with a TMDL, total maximum daily load. It basically says that that stretch of the creek has been polluted. It's over a certain level for a particular contaminant. And once that TMDL has been established, once they've established that there's a pollution in the creek, then it's eligible for funding. And so those have been established on the lower reaches of the creek. But we propose modeling the entire watershed because it could just be accumulating and it's just hit that breaking point at that lower part of the creek. We propose spending more of our time and energy on the lower reaches because that's what the TMDL has identified. But with our GIS approach, it doesn't really take a whole lot more resources and time to look at the entire watershed all at once. And just for your information, the entire watershed is 718 square miles. And about half of that is under TMDL.
Would your approach, I understand modeling the entire area to try to figure out all the sources, and if you're missing a source, and not just the short area that you're going to address the TMDL, is your plan to address the TMDL from like Fairgrounds east, or is it from all the way through Rapid City? Are you trying to address all the pollutants in the two different TMDLs? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely focus on the ones that have TMDLs, but as long as we're doing the model, it's quite easy to just add a couple others. I know they haven't done a lot, there hasn't been a lot of focus on nutrients yet. I mean, they just haven't done the study. Or not enough is what I believe. And so it doesn't take a whole lot for us to add that into our model. Do you want to know where the nitrogen sources are coming from? There may not be a TMDL, but it's a tool that we can use. There's development going on every day. And if we don't have a tool in place to try and manage that development, it can get too far down the road, and then you're trying to go back and put Band-Aids on something when you could have done a little bit up front in working with the developer. And so to get sort of a tool in place where we can look at nitrogen, phosphorus, some of those other things that might be potential pollutants, and where it might be, you know, you might have a particular parcel of land right now that's not developed, but we know that it could contribute this particular nutrient if it were developed. And so we could target that area and say, all right, whenever developer goes into this area, he's got to be careful of this. And so that's why I say don't just address the two that we have TMDLs for now, because you're missing it. And like I said, with our GIS model, it's quite easy to add that in there.
Before I admit after the rest of the people, the other question, when you ask for a sponsorship from us, what all do you envision us doing? And would any of our work that we do be considered part of the matching funds for the 319 program?
Okay, so the level of involvement of a sponsor is kind of all different, all over the map. It depends what their resources are. So if they are not willing to contribute any of or if they don't even have any staff resources or material resources, then our fee just gets more. Or we have to hire somebody to do things like public participation or things like that. So, for example, we did one watershed plan for $60,000. That was our fee. We did another watershed for a client in the northern suburbs of Chicago, where they have a big department that handles water resources. So they contribute a lot of their own staff resources. But for the same size watershed plan, we charge $120,000 because in that particular case, the sponsor didn't have any resources to contribute towards the project. So it just affects our fee and what we have to do. If you don't want to deal with a lot of the day-to-day, a lot of the nuts and bolts of the project, that's just fine. But it's just like deciding to build your own house or hiring somebody else to build your house. It's, you know, it's the choice that you have.
Does our group serve as the banking unit?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah. So you would get, just like you got a budget request this morning, you would get a budget request that would outline the items that are requested for that time period, and you could choose to approve or disapprove them. One thing I did since our last meeting here, I wanted to, I put together a list of what does this typically cost. We do probably in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 watershed plans a year. And one we did was larger than Rapid Creek, but most of them are smaller than the Rapid Creek watershed. And they ranged in the $60,000 to $150,000 range for fees. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with any other watershed plans, but that's on the low end. And the reason is because we're not real labor intensive in the way that we do it. We rely on a lot of existing data, and we have our own proprietary model that uses GIS, which, you know, the city, the county, they all have GIS. So when we're done with this, we give them all the GIS files and we walk away. And they can do it without us. They don't, you know, need to keep paying us for the next 10 years to try and work with this plan. We give them the model and they can use it. We've kind of estimated this Rapid Creek watershed, because it's got Rapid City, it's got a big urban component, there's going to be a lot of legwork, probably in the $150,000 to $200,000 range.
Questions from the other directors?
Are you guys also proposing to write the grant?
We work with the sponsor to put the grant together, but we have a lot of experience writing those, and we'll direct you in certain areas and help you out a lot with that, yes. But the grant application has to come from the sponsor, and we'd like to work more together with you to write that so that it's more you than us, if that makes sense.
Well, then that's, since we only have one administrator, we're talking double, because she's not going to have time to jump in, work on 319 government grant request, and plus take care of our stuff.
Do you have an idea of what that would involve as far as time and resources to do the grant?
Well, Jeff that was here before, he'd have a lot better idea how to answer that question. I'll send Denise an email with that, and I'll have her forward it to the rest of you.
It'd be good to understand that
Sure.
how much that would eat up of her time for us, but just a question and something to digest.
Okay.
Other questions?
Question. The intent of the grant, because I wasn't here for the other presentation, I'm sorry. But,
Sure.
So what you'd be putting into for 319 is for your total amount, or there's a cost share to us, or maybe I missed that part of it because what you talked about the last time. So if you put it for $200,000, is that the amount of the grant, and so there isn't any cost per se to our board?
So here's how they work. There's 319 program generally works in two phases. One is a planning grant, and the second is an implementation grant. So the planning grant is heavy on consultant fees, and the implementation grant is heavy on construction. Another thing I might point out that we do a little bit differently is the back end of our planning grant has specific implementation projects where we've already met with landowners and asked them, what are you willing to do? You know, what kind of projects, we make suggestions, but if they're not willing to do that to their land, then we're not going to put it as a BMP, as a practice that we want to implement in the plan. So we learned a long time ago that if you get a whole bunch of money, you've got it, and then you don't really have specific project locations to put it, then it's kind of a free-for-all of people trying to get money. Whereas before we have the money in the bank, we sit down and talk to landowners and decide what we want to do with that money, and we have it listed in the planning grant. That way, when we get the implementation grant, it's seamless. We just go right into doing it. We don't have to spend a lot of money on implementation, or I mean on sort of trying to figure out where to spend that money. It is a matching the grant. It's either, I'm not exactly sure. It's either I think it's 60-40, but there is a matching component that you have to. We try to, if a private landowner is getting something out of it, generally they have a cash or in-kind component to that, and then the sponsor generally comes up with an in-kind. But we would be, I mean, I would think that the city of Rapid City would be willing to, you know, because right now they're building a lot of these same practices, but they're paying 100% of the bill. So if there was a sponsor out there, an entity that sort of had more of a jurisdiction outside of the city of Rapid City. I think that's why the city is a little bit, you know, reluctant to be a sponsor, because they don't have jurisdiction way up on the west end of Rapid Creek. But I think they would be willing to foot some of the cash.
You would
match.
you would probably be seeking a lot of those donors out, not us, right? Correct? Because we would serve as a sponsor, the bank depository, and then anything we wanted to provide in kind for that match we could, either financially or with in-kind services.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you guys what level of involvement you would like, and we're perfectly happy to pick it up where you leave it off. So that's something that we would justify.
It just costs us more money, right?
Just costs more money.
The more it costs.
Absolutely, yeah.
How many landowners do you have supporting this right now?
Well, we've only visited with the ones that I mentioned, mostly major public entities.
How many public? I mean, private property people have you talked to that would impact on this project?
We haven't talked to any private landowners yet, though.
Well, I prefer you talk to them before you. I'd like to have their input.
Sure. Generally, that's why they have it in 2 phases, a planning grant and an implementation grant, because it's hard for consultants to spend a whole bunch of legwork and time and not be guaranteed that they're going to get paid for that. And so they do it in a planning. So in the planning phase, we can decide, we can look at it and say, okay, we have these 400 landowners, and we can ask which ones are interested. Maybe only 30 of them are interested. So then our implementation grant is smaller.
Yeah.
But we had time and energy and resources to be able to go out and do that.
And the taxpayers waste a lot of money in planning stages when projects are coming and we have to pay for their planning too, to go out and do all this information. And then it doesn't pan out and we're still out that money because it didn't pan out. Why should the taxpayers flip the bill to see whether this is a worthwhile project or not?
Well, I guess that's why we're looking for an interest of a sponsor. If there aren't any sponsors that are interested, then we don't do anything to Rapid Creek. But if you feel that Rapid Creek needs to be cleaned up or something needs to be done, and you feel your board has a directive to do that, then I guess that would be your motive to proceed or not.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of studies that have been done over the years, and a lot of collecting of data and putting them into one package, and all that data ends up in the shelf in some government office and never is looked at again. What would make your data different?
Because like what I just said, we've done watershed plans in the past that just followed the EPA guidelines. You know, you just have to have a planning document and then you put it on the shelf. We don't like to see stuff put on the shelf. So that's why we've included at our own prerogative a section at the back that actually has specific projects that we've already negotiated an agreement with the landowner that says in the planning document, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to build, and we've already had discussions with them. That way when we go into implementation, we know what we're doing.
Okay. It would make a big difference to me if you would go out and do just a tad bit of legwork and get at least a couple property owners on what you're planning on doing, support.
Okay.
You don't have to go out and do a whole field study of that area, but it would be nice to have a couple of property owners willing to back you.
One of the things that we've done is we've asked for a letter of support from some of these organizations that we've been to talk.
No, I don't want
with.
organizations. Organizations are
Sure.
really easily to support.
Reason I mention that is, would your board be willing to write a letter of support for this so that when we do go talk to other property owners, other landowners, they know that you're behind it, the project?
Well, I guess it's kind of a catch-22 because I would like to see a little support from the public on this project before saying that we're going to support the project.
I think that the difference between a lot of the studies that are done is that they're studies to identify whether there is or isn't a problem. It's been determined there already is a problem, and at some point it's going to have to be addressed. And this group's proposing that they're going to address it through 319, and in order to do that, they got to go out and get funding before they can start doing the work, because they don't want to go out and do work where they're not going to get paid. So I think he's coming here just looking for a sponsorship, that we'd be a banking organization. And that's what he's here for today.
I understand that, but I mean, it would be nice to have like I said, a couple of property owners saying that they would be willing to support this project too. They've gone out and talked to organizations and saying they might be able to. I would like to hear from some private individuals too on it.
That's true. My point is.
Yeah, I know. I understand your point too.
They need to get.
Yeah, like I say, it's a kind of a catch-22.
Well, not necessarily. In order for somebody to do work, they want to get paid and there's money. So that's not going to be done until they can go out and get the sponsorship and money and go do the work. Because I myself am not going to go do work. I'm not going to get paid for it. And that's
I go out and do work and I don't get paid for it
Correct.
sometimes. Just to get
Mr.
more.
Chairman, would it be out of line to not make a motion, but a request of Northern Consulting, a kind of a cost analysis of what this is going to run up front prior to getting a 319 grant? How much is it going to cost to write the grant request? Because we don't have the funds, we don't have the capability of doing that. How much is it going to be to put this model together, which I don't necessarily agree with, but would that be out of line to not make a motion, but just make a request that they come up with some kind of a proposal and have it in the next meeting?
I think you mentioned potential cost, didn't you?
I did.
60 to 150,000.
That's the planning grant, and usually we help you write the grant pro bono. We don't charge for that. You submit the grant. If you don't get the grant, nobody pays for anything.
And it's my understanding we're not obligated to anything. All they're asking for us today is to be a sponsorship for them to go out and get the matching funds, and then we're just the banking entity.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But the problem I got is I got a lot of experience with Spring Creek 319, and that thing is a disaster as far as management goes, and I'll say that to anybody sitting. And I don't want that to happen if we take on Rapid Creek. And I agree, Rapid Creek's, I'd like to see them just dump the money in Spring Creek and put it in Rapid Creek, where it really belongs. That's not going to happen. So that's my only suggestion is if we get something in writing, because the 60,000 to 150,000 to implement, that's a big spread. And I don't care if it's federal tax money or state tax money or county tax money, it's still the people's money. So I just kind of like to get it narrowed down, and then we can talk about it.
I was going to say when a contract.
Just a suggestion.
No,
Yeah.
I understand.
When contractors come for money, they have a bid, or I mean, we'd like to know more details as far as costs and all that type of stuff goes.
It's my understanding that stuff all gets built in when we start doing the work. They start doing their modeling and everything. He's given us kind of a ballpark figure, and that's a figure that he's going to have to get approved through the 319 process. All he's asking us to do is be a sponsorship local sponsorship for this program. And if at some point you'd be willing to pitch into the program financially or with in-kind services, we would do that and be part of it. But is that correct?
Yeah, and the other thing, in the process of writing the grant, you define what your scope of work is. At this point, we don't know if the sponsor wants to stop Canyon Lake down, or do they want to do the whole watershed. So it's hard for me to put a price on something when I don't know exactly what the scope of work is. So that would all come out in the process of writing the grant. We'd come up with a draft grant application.
Yes.
Would you propose putting all the TMDLs together at one time? I mean, it's kind of a waste of time to do the lower creek if the upper creek is.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's the whole watershed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, we got. As far as I know, there's 3 TMDLs on that creek, right?
2 that I know of.
There's 3. One for the road, bacteria up the road.
There's a TSS and a bacteria that I know of.
So there's only 2?
That I know of.
Okay. So we would be combining these 2 TMDLs right up front. We wouldn't go halfway into the project and say, okay, now we're going to combine these 2 TMDLs and then charge the taxpayer another $40,000 to do that, which has been done.
No, and I'm actually proposing adding more things that we think could be TMDLs in the future. Just get it out of the way, get it done now, so we don't have to pay for it again in the future.
I guess the biggest problem I got is one's just managed a hell of a lot better than the other ones.
Director.
Yes, I just had a question. I wonder if you could clarify for me. We've talked about planning and implementation, and you know, I'm not sure if are you talking about two separate proposals here that you're going to do, or is it all rolled into one, or are you going to skip the planning, go right to implementation?
No, this is all just for a planning grant.
Just planning. Okay,
Yeah.
because some of this wording says implementation, so this is planning.
Well, we've learned in the past that if you don't talk about implementation during planning, then you run into a lot of problems. Landowners start fighting over money or who gets what. And so we try to just start the discussion as part of the planning process.
Right, okay. And then my second question is, what are the funding cycle dates on these programs that you'd be looking at, or we would be looking at? Like when they're due?
You can't quote me on this, but I believe it's sometime in late October.
It's October 1, I believe.
Sometime in October.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions from the directors?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
The 319, the 40%, just for clarification, it's 40% match, and that can be hard match or in kind. So like any type of labor or materials that are donated to a project are in kind.
Thank you. I like the concept of doing this. I think this is one thing that we're here for, is to be this type of sponsorship for this type of program. And if it's here, we can ask some hard questions, and we can watch a little bit of the management, and we can be part of it. And so I like the concept, and I guess what I throw out is I think what he's seeking here today is a motion to get approval to be a sponsor on that. And is there anybody willing to throw out that motion?
I'll make a motion to write a letter for the chairman's signature to step up to manage or be the prime sponsor for Rapid Creek 319.
Got a motion on the floor to write a letter to be a sponsor of the 319 program from the chairman to sponsor the Rapid Creek 319 project. I got a second from the sheriff. Any further discussion?
The letter to, would that be to, who's the letter to, Northwater, or?
Who would we need to make that letter to?
Northwater would be.
And that would be part of your package going to the state water fund? Is that correct?
I guess that's what we'd work with you to help initiate the project. I guess that's what we need.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I just got one more question. On when you go to implement, and the homeowners need stuff, will you be insisting on mean testing for any additional funds for people?
Say that again.
Means testing, any of the funds for additional, I guess that would be in the information. Never mind.
Okay.
That would be in the information.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
I'll get you.
About 10-minute break. Those old farts.
Let's take, we'll recess, take a break for about 5-10 minutes. Once everybody's back, we'll break on again.
So I can take them.
What do you think? Yeah, you can do it. That's what I said.
How you doing?
What are you up to, Foster?
Well, hey, Denny, how you doing, man?
Pretty good.
Okay, carry on.
we had a short meeting to discuss it. Well, not a short meeting, we had a good meeting, and we went through, we kind of revised the entire format of the contract because there were pieces of the contract that had discussion. It was kind of like an MSA, and anybody that deals with contracts, a master services agreement, and then it had task orders on it, and each year those task orders would be different, and they were kind of redundant with the MSA, and it was kind of confusing when you read both. So what we did is we combined it into one, and then just created, if there was a change order, if we asked for more work from the RCAC, we would do a change order, and just specify that, and keep the main contract. I shipped this back after we cleaned it all up, shipped it back to RCAC. That they're in agreement with it, with the thought and everything else. So what we got is a contract ready to be signed. With that said, I'm just going to open it up for discussions to see if anybody has any comments on the contract that we have it right now.
Do you want to make a motion first before discussion?
Yeah, we probably need a motion to approve the contract.
I was so moved.
Second.
We got a motion to approve the contract in second, and we'll open it up for discussion.
Okay, I have a problem with the word help in the first two lines.
With what?
The word help in the first two lines. Mainly because of the meaning of the word, and mainly in the dictionary, the second meaning of the word, to rescue or to save. That word I do not want to think that they have the right to come in and rescue us or to save us for any reason.
I don't interpret it in that fashion.
I know you don't,
Right.
but the dictionary does. And two, when you're working with a contract, every meaning of the word is subject in that contract.
Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, you have a suggestion.
Yeah, I
Let me see
did.
where you're
I wrote
reading.
it down.
Oh, I didn't hear
Implement
Oh, here, okay.
would probably be a good one. I would even go with assist, but I don't like help.
I don't think changing it with the assist is any problem. And we can change both of those to assist.
I
And we
prefer
can-
implement,
and we can make an amendment on that. But let's go through and see if there's any other concerns or comments. Anybody else? All right. I don't see or hear none. There's to change two words. We probably need an amendment to the motion to approve to change those two words from help to assist.
I'd like to eliminate item 4. West Dakota Water Development District responsibilities, items B and C. Our obligation is to pay the contract. I don't feel we're obligated to do a performance report for RCAC. RCAC can do their own performance report.
I'm not following you, Director Richard. Which item are you talking about?
Item 4, B and C.
Okay. In your recommendation or suggestions to what?
Delete B and C.
The reason we left B and C in there was to provide a review of their employee services. So we could understand and let them understand that either we're satisfied or not satisfied with the services, giving us a mechanism to do that.
I think if we are not satisfied with the services, we sure have that done prior to the next contract.
And we'd have that opportunity to cancel the contract within 30 days notice at any time. This was just a process to provide a review of how Denise or that person in that position was performing.
That's fine, I don't agree with it.
I don't either.
well, you definitely have the opportunity to make a motion to kill it and we can vote on it, but there's a.
Okay, I make a
so-
motion to remove B and C.
Well, that'd be substitute motion?
Substitute motion.
Is that what that'd be?
We have a motion on the floor to approve it, and then we'll have to have some type of amended motion to change help to assist.
You have to ask Orland if he accepts the friendly amendment to change the word help to assist.
Let's
First
do
of
that
all.
one. Let's do that one first, and we'll work on the next one.
Orland, do you accept that as a friendly amendment
I
to your
don't-
motion?
I have no hang up matter of semantics, but I don't care. If they want to use assist, it's fine with me.
Okay, so we have the motion changed to approve with the change of the word. So now you are on section 4, B and C, and
We need Orland's approval for that too.
Okay, so Richard wants to strike B and C.
That'd be amendment.
Well, it's,
It's almost gotta be a separate motion, though, in order to make that.
well,
Well, he made a motion to approve the contract, so we gotta
Yeah.
make an amended motion.
well, Richard and Bashara can make an amended motion saying to approve with striking B and C, and you can have an amended motion. And then you can vote on the amended motion.
First, before you vote on the original.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. So we got, so what we got is a motion on the
You have,
floor to approve, and what we're looking for, if we're looking to strike B and C, you need to make an amended motion.
to
remove B and-
approve striking B and C.
Yeah, to strike B and C. And then we'll move on.
I'll make
And
that-
then
I'll
if
make
that does,
motion.
and then if that motion fails, then it goes back to the original motion, which is Orland's motion with a friendly amendment to change help to assist.
We got a motion, an amended motion to remove B and C. Is there a second?
Well, I guess I need a clarification. What are you talking about? All of Article
Item
4?
4, B and C.
No, because B and C, because the A
You want
is
those, we'll strike those two.
Oh, okay.
No review of
I'm with you.
performances.
Is there a second?
One second.
I thought you seconded.
One second.
Well, he proposed it, I made the motion.
Oh.
So Bashara moved to strike B and C.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't do that.
That's not
Let's
first.
just do it. Okay, I'll second.
Okay, Bashir made the motion to delete B and C.
To approve the contract striking B and C,
Correct.
or
No, to an amended
To
motion.
delete B and C from the
Delete
project.
it.
Yeah, delete.
to delete B and C, to just delete B and C, or to approve the contract with deleting B and C?
I think what
Just to
we do is
delete B and C.
Just to
Take
delete
it
B and C,
completely out
and
of
if
there.
that, we'll deal with that one, and then move
Okay.
on to the full contract next.
Okay.
So we got a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question. For Director Livingston, is this going to cause problems with our CNC to delete that when we send this to them? Are they going to?
It has to go back to them for approval before they will sign it. So yeah, it has the potential of hang up. I can't speak for RCAC. If they have looked at this contract, it has been, they've changed the format and everything according to Director Rogers' comments, which was based off of the executive session that you had last meeting. And this is what they came up with. This is based off of what was presented to them. And they agreed this was adequate. So, but now if you're going to strike these things out, I can't speak if that's going to be.
I don't think it's going to be any problem with RCAC deleting these. I put these two provisions in as a review process for us. So I don't think this, and this is no responsibility of theirs, it's ours. So I don't think they're going to have any problem with it.
Excuse me, Foster, did you call her Director Livingston?
Oh,
Did you call her Director Livingston?
I might have.
She's not a director, so do not use that term for her.
Oh,
Let's continue on
Yeah,
where,
that's
so where we're
correct.
at. So,
Pissing contest now.
so we're at further discussion. So I don't believe it's going to be a problem with RCAC striking those two things. My intent was to put that in there to have a review process, so we had something documenting her performance.
Just a comment, I would agree that, I would like to see something in there that allows us the opportunity to review her performance. Because it gives her an idea of where her shortcomings are, where she should improve, and that's the only way you can do it. Obviously you should have conversations throughout the year, but certainly you should have some sort of documentation about if she's doing a good job or she's not doing a good job. And I would think RCAC would be appreciative of knowing that, but that's my opinion.
Director Akers?
What about if we could do it? I mean, we don't have to, but it might be something we want to do or we don't want to do. If that says that we will, what if we just put it that we could conduct the review? I mean, we don't have to, we don't want to, but we do it.
Correct, there's nothing saying that we do or don't have to.
Yeah.
Good with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do not need to put more demands on it. If we have time to review her, we can do so.
We can do that.
If we don't have time, we don't have to. I think that being a small entity, she pretty much knows the feelings about everybody in the group and her performance. Actually, I think she's doing a great job. There are certain things that I see are problems, and it's not with her, but it's with the fact that she serves two masters. So she's dividing up her time between us and them, which is a conflict of interest because they both are water related. Now, who's she serving better? We don't know. But that's my problem with her. And I'm upfront. I believe I'm being honest with everything. But as far as her work goes, she does a good job.
And all that review does is it documents that. There's no other place where it would be documented, because it would never show up in the minutes unless it becomes, unless somebody actually makes a motion to that effect. Because the discussion as such doesn't show up in the minutes. So all it does is a review formalizes that type of comment. That's all it really does.
Yeah, but then that comes up in the meetings too. I just brought it up.
Yeah, I know you did.
The problem I got is it's under responsible. The only thing we're responsible to do with RCAC is paying the contract.
Any further comments from directors?
Yeah,
It is a motion.
I was going to say, she's an employee of us. We're not an employee.
She's an employee of RCAC.
RCAC working for
And
us.
we have a contract.
Okay.
Before we vote, my last comment on this was it provided us a means to identify, to show her performance, whether it was good or bad, and to document it and the thing. But if it's the board's wishes not to have it, then we'll find out here in just a second to see if we do that or not. So, any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question to ask. On your term on this contract, it states that the contract will be
Just
July.
1 second. Can you identify who you are?
Yes, I do. My name is Tina. And the
Tina.
contract states that it's between July 2014 and June 2015. And my understanding that there is an election this year, and I believe there's some members that are up for re-election. And if you have this contract through 2015, any new elected officials would have to abide by this contract. And I suggest trying to make it a 6-month contract so that any new members would be able to review what it is that RCAC does.
Thank you for the input. Any further comments from the directors? Okay, we got a motion on the table of to strike B and C from the contract. All in favor to strike B and C, say aye.
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 All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
I think that we need to do a roll call.
No, I only have 2 people
Okay.
voting
Since
to
I've
strike.
The concept of strike is killed, so now we move back to approving the contract. And we have a motion on the floor to approve the contract with a friendly amendment to change help to assist on the first 2 bullets. Do we need any further discussion? Hearing none.
I think it's, yeah.
You can have public input?
Yeah.
Not on this right now.
Proceed.
This is we're proceeding.
It is an election year coming up, and it does make sense that the new directors have a little bit of input on what the contract is.
They will, as we go through that cycle, if there's new people in, they can deal with it at that time. So,
Oh, because we've got
can
30
cancel
days
30
to,
yeah,
to
you
discuss,
can
okay.
come and
I
cancel the
understand.
contract within 30 days.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
It passed, it sounded like 2 deconsenting. All right. Next item.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did you just pass the motion without asking for public input?
Yes, we did.
Did you just pass that motion
Yes,
without asking for public discussion?
correct.
Let the minutes reflect that I oppose what you just did.
Okay, can you state your name, please?
I'm a taxpaying citizen of Pennington County, and I object to what you just did.
Okay.
You are a state entity.
We'll put that into the record. Would you oppose it? Next item is policy and bylaws approval. Since I kind of led the committee running this, we had, I'll give people a little bit of update on where we're at with that. We had a meeting on the procedures, policies and procedures, and we commented on those, and so we got those sitting out. We shipped that out to the entire board for review. We got comments back from the board and addressed those comments and shipped them back out. So that was one item. The other item was the bylaws. There was we went back through those, shipped those out for everybody's review, and ran through those. The basic thing with the bylaws, what we did is there was a lot of bylaws that had parts and pieces of the statutes in them. And in one instance, we addressed that, and we removed one item and just referenced the statute. So as we were going through the rest of the bylaws and reviewing through those, that was occurring in other locations. So we removed all of those requirements and just listed the laws that pertain to the organization. So if those laws change, those are referenced in the bylaws that we go to. There was discussions of getting rid of the bylaws altogether, but there are things in the bylaws that you need to do to operate that aren't addressed in the state statutes. So those were included. But I think what we'll do is we'll address each one separately. And so I'll look open it up for discussion. I'll look for a motion to approve the policies and procedures.
So moved.
I think somebody will need to make the motion.
Cook made a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Cook made a motion, and we got a second, so I'll open it up for discussion. Director Richard?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the contents doesn't jive with the actual contents letter, or page. It's not like policy 8, availability of public records, the policy is evidence.
Also, that's a couple not mentioned that.
Yes.
Okay. With those are
Mine.
clerical errors.
Yeah, this needs to be fixed.
Noted, thank you. Comments from other directors? All right, hearing none, I just have one comment. these are, the policies and procedures are working documents, and, you know, we can come back and change them. And the one thing that I added in the bylaws was to come back and identify the procedure to come change those. So, I mean, it's not gonna be sitting in, you know, written in stone, the procedures there. They're sitting there now, and if we have issues with them as you go through them, we can come back and address them very easily at any meeting. So, with that said, all in favor of approving the policies and procedures, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. I don't think we're giving the public a chance to jump up, see what they have to say.
All right.
All right.
Are there,
He's absolutely right. The public, this is a
I
public
don't agree with you.
issue.
We'll go back and, I didn't hear anything from the public on that, so I didn't specifically say the public, but we will go back to,
Yeah, we
let me
are,
finish a second. We'll go back and open it up. I'm not sure how we were to send that, but you're right, we need to get public input on that if there's comments on the public, or the policies and procedures. So is that,
I would ask the board if they are all okay with opening it up to, going back and opening it up to the public. So if it's a unanimous vote to open it up to the public, then
okay.
I would.
Is the entire board open, or agreeable, amendable to opening it up, comments to the public, and then we're going through the vote?
On policies and procedures.
Yeah, policy procedures. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any comments public comments on the policies and procedures?
Well, I have a question first. Was the motion just for the policies or policies and bylaws?
It's the policies and procedures.
The bylaws are separate.
They're coming next, yeah. Any further? All right. Now we'll go back in, all in favor, there's a motion on the floor to approve the policies and procedures. There was a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those pass.
So just clarification, Director Richter, you are not opposed to the policy and procedures? Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, kind of give a little background on the bylaws. If we can get a motion to approve those, to open that up for discussion. And a second.
motion to approve bylaws.
We got a motion to approve the bylaws. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Akers. Any further discussion? From the board, and then we'll go to the public.
Yeah, you know where I stand on bylaws. So.
Pete, go ahead. And
I don't agree with bylaws. So if you can put a codified law next to any statement in then it's a law, it's not a bylaw, and if you can't, then it's either a policy or a procedure. So I don't think as a political entity we need bylaws. We have laws to follow by the state, and if we're doing something above and beyond, we have a policy and a procedure to do.
And again, we are not a legislation where we can pass any different laws in any kind.
Yeah, I agree with both.
And to place bylaws is creating a law that we are governed by. A policy and procedures are what we need. We don't need bylaws.
Thank you. Any more? Comments from any directors? Just again to note that what we addressed in here is we referenced the laws that we're governed by, and we identified things, how we operate, approving policies and procedures, how we vote, that are not addressed by the state legislature on how we operate as a board. So, comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In looking over your bylaws, I have researched the codified law 46A3A, and everything that you have in your bylaws is already a codified law. And my understanding of bylaws are for establishing how a business is run. I understand that having policies and procedures is necessary for you to maintain your way of conducting business. But I believe that the statutes are your governing directives, and those are given to you by the state in the codified laws that you have listed in your purpose, section 1 of your bylaws. And having that said, all of the governance that you have and the purpose that you have are all stated in the codified law of 46A and all the codified laws that you have listed in section 1. And I believe that the bylaws for the Water Development District should only pertain to the number of meetings that you have, the time of meetings, the meeting places, and things that are not addressed in codified laws that are governed by governing you as a state entity listed in the state statutes.
Thank you, Tina. Just a quick comment on that. The intent of putting those in there was just to reference, to let our group know that as they look at their bylaws and how they're operated, that those are the governing statutes that we are. We didn't list them out before, they were listed out in bits and pieces. So, no, I agree with you that, and that was our intent, is just to reference those statutes so that we knew which ones were governing us.
So that's the only purpose, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, is that the only purpose that you have is by listing section 1 and section 2 to be just to clarify to the directors themselves as to what your governing body of the state's directives are by codified laws.
That's correct.
And not by bylaws that you are trying to form a business through.
That's correct. Our previous bylaws just took bits and pieces of those statutes and put them in here, and we cleaned all of that out, and all we're doing is referencing this to go right to those statutes. Because actually they had changed and they weren't correct in our bylaws, so what we're trying to do is just reference those statutes to understand what our governance is.
Is there any other purpose other than that? Because as a director, would it not be your responsibility to know the codified laws that govern you as an entity?
When I came onto this board, I had no clue what the statutes were. I had to go search and search and search and call people up. If this was sitting here, I would have known exactly where to go.
Missing. This was one of the reasons why we did this, is because our directors did not know.
Tina, anything for you?
Not at this time.
Thank you. George?
Do any of you 9 directors believe that you're not a creature of statute?
Say again, George, please.
Do any of you believe that you're not a creature of statute?
I'm not following you, but that's
Yeah, I'm not understanding that question.
Well, the Supreme Court of South Dakota, about 20 years ago, said another governmental entity, county commissions, are creatures of statute. So I presume that all governmental entities that are created by the legislature are similar, and they're creatures of statute. The Supreme Court went on to say that something to the effect, and I don't have it memorized exactly, but basically, as creature of statute, you only have the powers and authority granted by statute, or that can be reasonably derived therefrom. Black's Law Dictionary, and I'm sure Mr. Jasper will correct me if I'm wrong, but says the bylaws are for non-governmental agencies. So since you're a governmental agency, then you can't have bylaws. Okay? That aside, looking at the bylaws, what happens if the first one changes? If that statute changes, and it can change, then which document prevails? Obviously the statute prevails and not the bylaws. Article 3, and this one I already get a chuckle out of it. Each director shall be entitled to 1 vote on all matters. Where in the hell did that come from? How could each director not have one vote? Why is something like that in? How could somebody even think like that? How could you not have, each of you have one vote? It's unbelievable.
There were 3 other provisions in that section in the previous bylaws, and it talked about having a designated person come represent one of the directors. So that was one of those things that struck, and this is one thing that was in there. So.
Once again, you've heard me say before, even before you came on the board, that bylaws are void and null because you're a creature of statute. Your authority and your direction, your prohibitions come from peer. And you folks have no authority to make law. There's nowhere that I can... Now, having said that, the county commission does have lawmaking authority by ordinances. But I have read nowhere in any of these statutes talking about water development districts where you have any authority to make any law. Period. Any law. Duties of the officers. I would think that there's probably, and here again, maybe Chuck can correct me, but I'm thinking that general guidelines for running a meeting and chairman and so on, so specified in statute. Unbelievable. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Any other comments from the public?
I do have one other one. In Article 3, Section 1, where it states that the chairman presides over the meetings of the board of directors, and he or she shall execute contracts and other instruments on behalf of the board and otherwise represent the board. Is that without question, or is that before, during, or after a board meeting? Or can you just represent the board at any time wherever you are?
I believe it's intended for by given direction from the board.
Policies and procedures.
So, if that makes sense.
Because I mean, in the way I
Yes.
read
Tina,
this particular...
in policies and procedures, it states that a director has to have approval of the board to speak for the board.
Okay. It just doesn't read proper to me.
It's, you're correct. If you're reading it separately, it would not be.
Yes, when you're reading Article 3 separately, it does give the director, the chairman, excuse me, full power on behalf of the board. And the way I read it, it's just saying that the chairman has the rights to represent the board at any time.
So it does have on behalf of the board.
On behalf of the board.
Which to me means that it has to have approval from the board.
Okay.
So, any further comments from the public? All right. With that said, we have a motion on the board. Director Gaster.
Yes, since I wasn't here for all of it, I did hear some of Mr. Farabee's comments, so I would like to respond briefly to some of his comments. Number one, he is correct that this board only has the authority given us by statute. Number two, I voiced my opinion that I don't think it's necessary for us to have bylaws, but I would want to correct something that Mr. Farabee did say. I have done a little bit of research, and there is law that indicates that municipalities can have bylaws and other governmental organizations can have bylaws. They're not required to. They aren't necessarily forbidden either. Personally, I don't think they're necessary. I would have a few minor corrections to make to what is proposed, but that would be the extent of my comments.
Appreciate the legal review on that, and that was going to be one of my comments, just to follow up to see if we needed to do a legal review on whether we had the ability to do bylaws or not. It's just sometimes there's things that aren't clear that you seem to have to clarify, and whether you do that policy or procedure or bylaws, because it sounds like it's up to the entity. Any further discussion on that topic with the rest of directors, that information?
No. I just don't think it's necessary.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the bylaws. We got a second. We've had all the discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I've abstained.
Abstained. Okay, so we got 2 opposed, 1 abstained, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 approved. Bylaws pass. And again, there's provision in to readdress the bylaws in the bylaws. So we can come back and kill them or come back and change them or whatever we want. Change of meeting time and frequency. I think I'm going to pass that off to Director Richard.
You know, and for time's sake, I'd just like to table that for now. If that would be okay with the board? Any objections to that? I guess I make a motion to table it for now.
For now.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion to table the discussion on change of meeting time and frequency, and we got a second. Any further discussion from the directors, from the public? All right, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, off to new business. Spring Creek 319 practices, policies, and ranking systems. You're gonna have to excuse me, I'm not sure who's directing that discussion.
This was put on the agenda at the last meeting. You had wanted to have this as an agenda item for basically open discussion. This was brought up. I put 2 sheets in front of you. One is the scoring or the ranking system, and the other one is the current list of applications. And if you'll remember the last meeting that I attended for the Spring Creek Advisory Group, they had recommended, I'm going to steal your sheet here and look at this. They recommended funding 2 on-site wastewater treatment systems in the Blue Wing campground area. These projects, if you look at the application list at the bottom there, they are numbers 2013 PC 96 and I'm sorry, what?
97.
And 97. Is that the one? I thought it was 89. I think it was 89. At any rate, these ranked 35% of the max percentage points. And at that meeting, there was one new application, the one at the very top, the Cody Rust application was a new one, and it ranked 46%. And I wanted to break out, just share with you the advisory group meeting procedures that were handed out at that meeting. I'm just going to read them to you. So advisory group meeting procedures. The first one was to stay on task, follow the agenda, and meeting on time. The second, operate on a consensus and or general agreement of present members. So everybody there was to operate on a general consensus of the advisory group. Number 3, if an advisory group members which are not in consensus or agreement of recommendations will have their concerns forwarded to the Board of Commissioners. So what had happened at that meeting was that I had suggested that we wait on the new application since it ranked 46%. At this time, the other applications that had been approved ranked at least over 50%. And this was an application that was ranking pretty low on the ranking form. And so I had asked that we just, since we were getting ready to put out another push for applications, that we hold off on funding this application until we see other applications that come in, thinking that we might have more applications that rank higher in actually a better implementation project than what we were seeing here. So that received consensus of the group. Following that, though, a gentleman, and Director Richard, please tell me his name, that owns the Blue Wing.
Ron Raskin.
And he was there, he sits on the advisory board, he made the recommendation to approve these other two applications. He said he knows that they're getting ready to do these projects, and these other two applications ranked at 35%, lower than the one at 46%. And it did not sit very well with me because I thought we could easily wait on those as well till we saw the new stream of applications. The advisory board went ahead with the recommendation to the county to fund those two at 35% based on the recommendation of the owner of the property. And I had written my concerns that was presented to the county commission that I was not in consensus with the advisory group's recommendation. And even based on that, the county still funded the applications for these Blue Wing campgrounds. So with that, when that came up for discussion at last meeting, the board had decided that they wanted to review the ranking process or have this as more of a discussion item so that you could make any type of motion that you deem fit. Please note that at this time the push for new funding applications is out, that the Spring Creek Advisory Group meeting will be meeting again June 19th. And so this will be the last application round for these projects.
Isn't the 26th their drop dead date for applications?
For applications, I don't recall. I have it on my computer.
May 26th, I know.
So I'm not sure if we've received any more applications at this time. But right now, the implementation projects have to be completed by June 2015. So this is the last funding round. At this time, I don't know if there's anything that the board can put forward. I guess the only thing that I'd like the board to even talk about or consider is at the next advisory group meeting. I mean, to me, it just, I think the county has set a precedence that 35% is a viable project.
Yes, but there's nepotism right there. That's the mother of one of the persons on the board.
I'm sorry?
That's the mother of one of the persons on the board.
Who?
The Ross Nips.
They didn't vote on hers.
Oh, they didn't vote on hers
Yeah.
yet? Okay.
No. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, if I had an application in here and I ranked 35%, or I ranked 38%, why was my application not funded when somebody else at 35% was? And I just think the county kind of set a precedent, you know, funding those two applications. And I have a hardship that the recommendation came. I have an issue with all of it, sorry, but it's too late. It's done.
Question. Did you say the owner of the project made the motion?
The
Or the
owner
owner of
of
the property?
He's
made
on the
motion?
advisory group. He made the recommendation. It wasn't a motion. It's not done in a motion. It's done in discussion. It's done in consensus. He had thrown it out there, and the board ran with it, and then he said, well, I have to abstain because I am the property owner. So when I say he's the property owner, it's a recreational. The people that submitted the application lease the property on a year-to-year basis.
But nonetheless, he made the recommendation, and nobody raised the question of a conflict of interest?
No.
No.
And the public was not allowed to speak.
And coming up, there's, like I said, there's the Ross Nix, and I know for a fact that's one of the members
Yeah,
on
that's-
the board.
that's right.
You know, there is such outrage with this group.
May I add to that? In the county commission meeting, that was brought up that, in fact, his recommendation was to remove the 46%, which was the only one on the, you can't even call it an agenda, can you? Anyway, it was the only one up for consideration. He requested it be removed, which is 46%, which is, as far as I'm concerned, it's under 50%, shouldn't be considered. And bring up these two projects here, and then he went through a 30-minute beat down of the board, and then said, I'll have to abstain. Well, it was by consensus. I don't know what he was abstaining from. It was a bobblehead vote. Nope, there was not a word spoken, and I think there's some other people who were in that meeting that can verify that. There was not a word spoken versus yes or no. And then at the board meeting, commissioners meeting, I got up and, as a private citizen, and stated my opinion, at which time Commissioner Holloway said, well, how much money do we have in a fund? And they told him like $160,000 in that or something. And he said, well, this is only $7,000, okay. And Commissioner Davis said, well, I believe in clean water, like I don't. So, and then based on the fact that they had money in the fund, 35% was approved. I don't really know what Denise wants to do, but I think we should send a letter of our disapproval of what they did, just based on funding.
Any further comments from other directors?
Is that a motion?
Well, I think we're just doing a discussion on this, but
Yeah, it's in discussion. If we don't point out the misuse of funds, there's not, a lot of people don't understand that we've got to watch each other and the way taxpayer dollars are wasted. And if we are afraid to call out another group when they are mishandling funds, then we're just as bad as they are. That's all I got to say.
I've been kind of following this, and when I came onto the board, this was kind of a big issue, and I think my first meeting that we had this on the 319, the Spring Creek, it was, we voted to remove ourselves from participation in the 319 process, the Spring Creek process, never funded.
Right.
Then we still had some involvement from Director Richard and Denise on those boards. I understand, and I don't agree with what they're doing, but we've kind of removed ourselves to a certain extent. I have no problem with people going and voicing their opinions on that.
I disagree.
Let me finish, please. On that, just, go and do that. I don't think it's our responsibility. There's the 319 program that's run through the state. They need to be informed of this, and that's their money, and they can address it. I'm having a real hard time after we removed ourselves from that group, and now we're trying to go back and tell them how to run their business. So, but as a public person, I agree with you that we need to spend public funds wisely. But as far as this group responding to it, I think it's somebody else's responsibility or a private individual. That's my comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We did not remove ourselves from that group. We removed funding from the group. We are still on the group. As of right now, the only other entity that has put any money, not the county isn't putting money. As of today, the only one is the Forest Service, and they said they'd do it in kind, so they will provide some assistance, but they won't provide any money. So no, as of right now, everyone sitting on that board has not contributed a dime.
Right.
So we are withdrawing our funding, but we are still on the board. Number two, By statute, it says the purpose of the West Dakota Water Development District is to provide leadership in the planning, promotion, coordination of water development projects pursuant to conservation, developing, utilizing our water resources within the context of a prudent water management philosophy. Well, how much money we got in the pot? Oh, well, let's go ahead and fund, it's only $7,000. That isn't prudent. So I think we should state that isn't prudent.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe both of you have voiced your opinion, haven't you, on that?
Yes.
Advisory committee?
As
individuals.
individuals.
As individuals.
No,
I've said before, I will not speak for the board unless I get approval from the board.
Okay.
And no government entity has a pay-for-play system in effect. So you're saying because we're not participating with money, that is totally wrong. Because that then shows the public that we pay to get money back for our friends. This is ridiculous. We're on the board, we're a state entity, and well, how they allocate their funds, yes, but we are a state entity and we should be held in a little more higher esteem than what we've been held with that board. They have thrown us out of meetings when we had every right as a state entity to be there. And the way this board is passing out funds to their friends and family is ridiculous.
I think we should just stick with the topic. And the topic is, it's by statute, we should address this and we should send a copy to the DNR. Because if we recall at the last meeting, I said that, at the meeting before last, that the surface water cut their money off, cut their funding off. And one of the statements was, this justification is no justification for spending. So they cut their money off. So then the DENR comes up and says, well, we got an extra $65,000 that we'll just give you. So they just went right around the board to fund this. So if the DNR wouldn't have stepped up, the funding wouldn't even be going on. And they took it out of the slush fund.
Just
So
a
this is
question.
not prudent management.
A question on that piece, is the DNR represented at these meetings?
At what meeting?
At these advisory meetings?
Yeah, sit on the board. GF&P, Forest Service, I mean, there's only one elected official on the board and he's not even officially elected. Because he's not even officially on the board because he's not listed. And by their own rules, you gotta be listed. So Commissioner Davis is the only elected official that sits there, but he's not on the board, technically. But by de facto, he's a commissioner, so I'm sure he feels he's got that right.
Do you guys have a motion that you would like to present to the board?
I guess my motion would be just to send a letter to the DENR and the county commission, chairman of the DENR and the county commission as to what we believe is not prudent management of taxpayer funding.
So there's a motion on the floor to send a letter from the board to the Secretary of DENR and to the Chairman of the County Commission to discuss that this board does not believe the appropriation of funds is being done correctly.
Well, but per state statute, prudent water management.
What statute?
Yes, I got a motion, need a second.
What statute are you referring to?
46. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, it's just where you had a motion, I was,
Oh, yeah, 4683.
seeing if there was a second.
I think that's the one. Our duties are.
We have a motion on the floor, is there a second? Hearing none, the motion.
Well, I was gonna say, what type, you were writing down that we were to send them a letter that we wanted to discuss it?
No, the motion on the floor, do you want to repeat it, Dan, or would you like me to?
Yeah, it just send a letter to the secretary of the DNR, secretary and the chairman of the board that we don't believe that they are spending the money allocated to them in 319 in a prudent manner.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. We'll open up for discussion. The director. Director Casper.
I'm agreeing in principle with what Director Richer is saying. I think we need to make it known that we certainly do not approve of what's going on. I don't know that I heartily agree with the way he's worded his motion. Yeah, we need to make it known that we don't approve of the manner in which they're handling the public funds. But I think we need to have his motion stated with a little more specificity as to exactly why we don't approve of what they're doing.
I agree with you. It needs, in order for me to buy off on it, I need to research it and understand it a little bit better. And I need to know exactly why we're accusing that board of not appropriately spending funds.
Yeah, it appears to me there's some suggestion that maybe nepotism is coming into play. It certainly appears that money isn't being applied equally across the board. When I say equally across the board, the same standard isn't being applied in all cases, is what it appears like. And I certainly see that if one person is making recommendations and they're one of the people that is profiting, so to speak, or at least benefiting from their own advocacy, that to me is certainly a conflict of interest. And if it was someone on this board had an interest in a project that was receiving benefit from the project, that would be a violation of SDCL 46A7A47, and that would be a felony. Granted, it may not be a felony in their situation, but I'm just using that as an example. If one of us was benefiting from some project that we're advocating for, and this board approved, that would certainly be grossly out of place. It'd be a felony.
Why wouldn't it be a felony in their case?
Because the statute I'm referring to specifically relates to water districts and directors of water districts.
They're getting around the law by calling themselves.
Discussion from other directors?
I guess
If you could provide us more specificity, Dan, that would help.
I think George wants to talk. Anybody else got any? I'll let him talk and then I'll.
Sure.
Denise?
George.
I shouldn't be in the motion making business, but I guess I'd suggest that use the word proper management as illustrated at the last meeting by picking on two projects that were 35%, or that would be some specificity. What I want to comment about was the very law you have in your bylaws. Water Development District shall promote proper management. Now, do any of the 9 of you think that what you just heard
Director Richard talk about with proper management of water resources? You have an obligation. You 9 are elected officers of the state of South Dakota on a Water Development District Board. You are required to abide by the law or step down. Now, I know this law doesn't have a lot of specificity, but proper management is something that you shall do. There's no way anybody can come away with that at Spring Creek Advisory Group meeting that we went to that would conclude that that was proper management. You have an obligation. This group, this entity should be supervising the Spring Creek 319 project. Pennington County shouldn't be. That's a side issue. But as long as this board sits back and lets Pennington County and Respect Consulting run the show, then you folks are negligent in your duties. You're derelict in your duties by not stepping forward. You have an option. You either follow the law or you step down. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Anybody else in the public?
Mr. Chairman, can I make an alternative motion? We bring this, move this to old business, and I will have a researched draft letter for you at the next meeting.
Definitely.
Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Here we have on the floor, we had a motion to send a letter to the Secretary of DNR and to the Chairman of the County Commission to talk about prudent management of water resources. And we've got an alternative motion to come back with a drafted letter for the board to review.
Yes, for the chairman's signature. Draft for the chairman's signature. Fully researched.
Second by the chair.
Yes.
So with that said, let's open that up for discussion. To the director. Then the vote.
Well, we do need to see some type of letter before we can send it out, so it's only good that we have a letter, or at least a draft of a letter that we can look over and add our comments to, or to take from, or take something out of it that we'd like to see before we send it off.
And I agree, it needs to have some specifics in there to have some weight.
Yeah, so we know exactly what we're going to
The
do.
general statement doesn't have any information there. There's no information there. I know what we're looking at.
I may request upon signing it to have some type of legal review too.
Well, yeah, I mean, we need to see a letter before we send it off, so having a letter here to look at would be the only right thing to do. And then we can go through, like I said, and like I took the word, help out, we may want to take the word out, use a different one in the letter. We need to have something we can hold in our hands and make comments on it.
That would be very good.
Do they record those proceedings at all?
I asked for a recording of the group meeting and everything, and still get a response. But
They don't, do they record it though?
Do I have it recorded?
No, do they record it?
I think that there was a recorder sitting right next to me.
Okay.
What did they even call it? What did they even call him? To sit
Planning
next to the
director.
planning and zoning guy. I think there was a recorder there. Looked like a recorder. I don't know.
Denise, did you have a comment?
I would just ask that if Director Richard could shoot me the draft, then I can work with it, we can polish it up, shoot it off to you, you can look at it and make comments, and we can do that.
My comment is if we're accusing something of somebody that to extent to reveal that, I may ask for a legal review if I'm signing it.
Okay.
For not only my protection, but for protection of the board. To have somebody
Certainly.
To that extent.
Is this it?
George, did you have a comment? I see you stand up.
No, I was just going to ask about recording, and it's not officially recorded. When when I say officially, that's a word can be interpreted any way you want to, but typically there's a recorder sitting there for maintenance purposes, I think. So if you really wanted to get the recording, you probably could ask for it.
They probably wouldn't give it.
Okay, is everybody clear on the alternative motion to the alternative or substitute?
46 years.
Dan, was that alternative or
Yeah.
substitute motion?
Substitute motion.
Substitute motion, okay. All right, I think we've vetted it out with discussion. Everybody, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Foster, opposed?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
The next topic is on-site wastewater treatment system grant. Denise, I think you're going to lead the charge on that one.
Yes, I'll try to be brief since we are going long here. So the idea was to revise this grant program that we've had on the books, make it more user-friendly. This is the grant program that we've set $50,000 aside for. I believe this was back in sometime in 2010. Since the inception of this grant, we've had 3 applications come to the West Dakota office. 2 of those were system replacements. Only 1 of those have been funded for about $2,400. I received a phone call a couple of weeks ago asking questions about this. The main situation is that when somebody has a septic system issue, it's kind of an emergency situation. According to the way the grant is set up now, the project cannot even begin until the board has approved it. So if I get an application tomorrow that somebody needs to replace their septic system ASAP, it has to wait until the board sees it in July before they can even start. So it really, and then also the purpose of this grant, it says it's to assist low-income homeowners within the Water Development District to bring malfunction or failing on-site wastewater treatment systems into compliance. If the majority of our applications that come in are going to be for septic system replacements, you're looking at sometimes a cost depending on what the situation is. If it's a conventional system, according to the Spring Creek projects, they have conventional systems are funded at $7,000. A cost is $7,000. Mound system can cost up to $15,000. This is also very dependent on the excavation, the size of the system, the distance. A lot of variables go into that. And so it can cost significant amounts. You have a $2,000 cap on here, which if you are a low-income person or extremely low, regardless, that $2,000 cap does not really, ultimately it doesn't really help your low or lower income. And so basically, please take a look at this. Please, I will welcome any kind of comments. But my main focus was try to make this so it was easier for an easier application to go through, and it gave the board more flexibility to look and make a better funding decision on. A couple of the highlights, I took out the assessed property value at $125,000. Mainly, if we're dealing with a low income, it is very possible for somebody to be land rich but still a very low income household. So I really thought that might be kind of a barrier. Why cannot the property be for sale? I mean, if it's a situation where they might be in a situation where they have to sell it, but they can't sell it till they repair the system, that could also be a hindrance. Once again, taking out the $2,000 max. If you are an extremely low income, a family of 4, a low income would be $19,000. if you have to replace a conventional system at $7,000, the $2,000 grant assistance, you're still looking at them having to pay 26% of their annual income for their portion of it. So that's still really, taking them down to just a $14,000 income for a family of 4. So it really doesn't give the board much flexibility in that avenue. And then if you'll look, I kind of put everything down onto one page, a front and back, for the application ultimately. So make it, I'm not taking anything out. I mean, I'm just making it easier, more user-friendly. And the other thing that I recommended, kind of the big change, so that they're not dependent on waiting for the board, is that the board will look at any project that has been done within the last 60 days or 90 days, whatever time frame you want to put on that. But that will allow the individual to go out, do the project, and then the board can still look and see if it's a project worthwhile to fund with funding assistance.
Denise, is this something you were anticipating, I'm sure not to probably act on at this meeting, but open it up for discussion? Is that kind of...
You can open it up for discussion. We can postpone it to July. You can look at it, ask me questions, shoot me an email, whatever you want. I just really think that right now it's not a user-friendly program. It's, the couple calls that I've had, the call I had recently, she said she can't wait. She had to go out and start the project.
Have we ever funded any?
Just one for about $2,400.
When did it start?
The one that was funded was in 2011. So I think it started sometime it was approved in 2010.
Yeah,
some point.
it was one of the things that I approved when I first got on the board. And means testing was a big thing that I added on there. And we were going by what previous means testing formulas were.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we came up with the mean testing on that program. And the board, and I say I can't really talk for everybody on the board at that time, but people need to stay, we're there to help.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there to totally replace anything for anybody. Taxpayers are there to assist, so they will give some financial aid to help them get started on a project, but it doesn't mean the taxpayers have to totally fund their project.
This isn't saying that it's totally funding. It's just it's just removing
if we need
some.
to up the value on it a little bit, I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman? Median income is $64,000 in 2025.
Yes, these are updated figures that I got.
What is the median for a family? 3, 3.5,
So
4?
if you look, I got these numbers from USDA housing. That's where the initial numbers came from. So the median income, if you look at, so low income for family 4 is 51.2.
No, what's the median? What's the average household?
You mean size?
Size, yeah. 3.5
So that,
people?
I'm sorry, yes, that's based off of 4, family of 4. The 64,000 is a family of 4.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other comments from the director? I actually, when I received, I need to look over this a little bit more. I would have had good time to study it, so I think that moving it on to the next meeting is very good. So somebody want to make a motion to move it along, or maybe you don't, or just to make sure it's on the agenda for the next meeting.
I move we table till next meeting.
Got it.
Second.
Motion to table until the next meeting. In a second. Grab that, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Or I'll open that up for discussion. Public discussion?
One comment I'd make is, I understand the user-friendly part, but the flip side of that is lawyer-friendly part. So keep in mind that I don't think that you folks at the charter go around handing out money. And who's going to make the decision?
I wish we
I
had
think
done that.
Denise is saying, let her make the decision. And I'd be absolutely opposed to anything like that with taxpayer dollars. When we passed this thing, I think Sandy and I and I think Sawyer was on the board at the time, Orland, Laverne. I think we tried to keep it as minimal as we could for those really in need. It's not replacing the whole system. If the tank needs to be replaced, unless you got to haul it 1,000 miles, I think you could probably do that for a couple $1,000. Tanks, I don't know the exact price, but they're $400 or $500 per tank, and then the installation, you got to replace the drain field for $2,000 or $3,000. It's not the whole system, typically.
Thanks, Stuart. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by lawyer-friendly to help us out on what you mean?
If you start discriminating, that's when the lawyers step in. You do it for Sally, and then Martha wants it. You do it for Joe, and then Jack wants it. That's the lawyer-friendly part I'm talking about. Is he got it, but she didn't, or she got it, but he didn't.
I'm not sure that's the intent, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Tina?
I don't approve of the property cannot be for sale being excluded from this grant program. Anybody that's going to put their property up for sale, it should be their responsibility to make it sellable. It's not a taxpayer's responsibility to make sure, because the reason that they're selling the property is probably because they can't afford it. And if they can't afford it, then it's not a taxpayer's problem. And property should not be up for sale if you want to put this in a grant program. And with the grant being approved for it, or the grant must be approved before the work is done. I think should be left in, because if the work is done and then it comes up for discussion on the board, and the board just doesn't do the grant, well, then the homeowner was expecting that money, and now they're saying that you can't get it. So the grant should be approved before any work is done.
Thank you for those comments, very good comments. Denise, did you have any thoughts on what you meant by removing grant must be approved before the work is done, and by striking that?
Yeah, like I said, it's just if it's an emergency situation and they have to do it. I mean, Tina has a very good point, but the other flip side of that is if we have a system out there that is failing and it's possibly contaminating the groundwater or, you know, a recreational water body, then we're waiting possibly up to 2 months for the board to convene to make that decision. And I in no way, shape, or form suggested that I put my stamp of approval on this at all, just for the record.
I just wanted clarification, because I thought in the discussion we had, you said there was a time lag on that.
Right. I mean, the lady that called, she couldn't wait. She had to do something now, so.
Well, I was going to say, this is one of the reasons why we were looking at meeting more often, for one reason. Second thing, too, is they can go ahead and get the work done. They can still apply for the grant, and if the project warrants it, we can give them some grant money to help them through it. But these funds were never meant to, like I said, to replace their whole system. It was to help them out, not to do it for them, but to help them.
Mr. Chairman, can I rebut on that?
Just a second, Director Jasper, did you have or not, Richard? Dan? You had your hand up first.
Yeah, I did. The only thing I was saying, and maybe we should redo it so they do their system, and then they can come to us with their pre-bids in their actual work, and then we can look at their income and then that way there would be nothing out there where they think we're gonna give them some money.
Be two options, actually. They could either come to the grant or do that before or after. But
Yeah,
it's still
within,
based upon
90 days after we've done it or something, I give us time to remove it or something. But, once again here, I got a problem with giving money to private people, and I understand. I totally agree with when they gave the money to that disabled guy, that disabled vet that was bad shape and all that, but in my heart, if you need the money, go to your church or something, and go ask for some charity. Again, my philosophy is private property, taxpayers shouldn't be spending. We're not a charity.
Tina, did you have a?
Yes, I did, sir. Thank you. As far as the grant being approved before the work is done, being a septic system owner myself, I keep a pretty good eye on what my septic system is doing, because I do know that my septic system could contaminate, and if this woman had been aware of her septic system as a good homeowner should be, she wouldn't have had an emergency that would require her to ask for money from the taxpayers. What I was meaning by the work could be done by her, then she could come back and ask for the grant. But the way I was hearing Denise say that it was, the grant had to be, she wanted to strike that completely. I'm saying that the work could be done by the homeowner, then come back to the board for a grant. But not, I don't want the homeowner thinking that they're going to get grant money before they do any of the work.
Understood. Thank you.
I had put in one of my drafts that a submittal of the application does not guarantee funding, and I don't know if it made it in this draft. But it can easily be added.
I think we'll take those comments and we'll kind of try to flesh it out with a better document for something just to review and act on next time. So I think we'll roll on with all that said. All in favor of tabling it, moving it to next meeting? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Something good to look. You always got to look back and see what you're doing. Very good. Next step is director's use of letterhead and title. That was Director Richard.
Yes. This came up, geez, when was that? Back in January? When this first came up, Denise?
I don't.
Letterhead? I requested letterhead to send a question to get information from a government agency. I was told I couldn't get the letterhead to request information for the board under my title. And I've kind of held it off because of everything else going on, and if I realized that we were going to be here until 5 o'clock, I wouldn't be talking about it now. But anyway, this needs to be addressed, and I'd like to make a change into our policies that if a director requests letterhead to ask a question, not to make a statement for the board or whatever, and I guess we're just going to have to do that on trust, and if it comes back that he's misusing it, then we're going to have to do something. But I think the director, anytime a director wants to use the letterhead to ask a question of another government agency or a person or anything else and use his title to do it, or her title, I don't see what the problem is.
To me, you hit it right on the nail on the head, is that if you could throw together some type of policy we could digest and bring to the next meeting and look at, I think that would be great.
Okay. And the second one was using your title without the board's knowledge. I've seen in the letter, I've seen in the paper where it said you met with the city, talked to them about Canyon Lake, and West Dakota Water Development District. I don't think the board knew anything about it.
That I went to, there was a public works meeting with the Canyon Lake topic on board that we discussed as a whole, the meeting, and what the board approved. And that is all I talked about, was the approval of the $100,000 and the $50,000 match.
Paper got it on.
And it must have.
It's from West Dakota.
And what we were looking, I expressed that what we were looking for was further match.
That's my biggest concern is guys throwing their title out there, and we got plenty of problems with that with honorary phase commanders throwing their title around like it's actually doing something. So I got a problem throwing the title around if you don't have approval from the board to do it.
If there's any further discussion or no discussion, do you want to just table this and move to the next one?
Yep.
The concept. Yeah. Oh, that would be good. Give us something to digest. I'm not sure if you can get that written up and shipped to lease and shipped out. That would be helpful.
Oh, I'll get it to him.
I don't think we need a motion on that. So we'll go to move to reports. And crystalline aquifers, Hill City, Keystone area, final report, Dr. Elvis.
Well, good afternoon, board. And we are prepared to give a presentation here of the final report of the project that we conducted last year on water quality in the Central Bend Hills. However, I know that you all have been sitting for 3 hours, and time is left to defer to another meeting. We're willing to do that.
My recommendations continue.
Okay, well, thank you all for your patience.
It's let me throw that out before. Is everybody comfortable continuing on?
Yeah, but I need to take a minute.
Yeah.
Is everybody good to continue?
So we wait for...
Yeah.
I'm not, but I'm outnumbered. So. I might have to leave, Tim.
Okay.
What?
Just because I didn't came back doesn't mean you can't.
Well, I'm not coming back.
And then you can't leave.
Outside of adjourning, I don't think we'd have any other major decisions to make. So
Okay.
On that end. Just looking at what we have
I
left.
promised to come back, and I did. So.
But I appreciate you coming back today.
Elvis. I don't think she intended for you to wait.
Well, we can do a part of the start here. There were 3 faculty members from the Geological Engineering Department at the School of Mines who were involved in a study of the crystalline aquifers in the central part of the Black Hills. Dr. Davis, myself, and Mary Beth Price. There were a number of students that were funded by this work, and they're listed there, but I would introduce the one who hasn't already gone on to a summer job somewhere where our semester is over. And if you'd stand up, this is my colleague now, Enoch Tireno, and he has worked a number of semesters on projects that were funded by the West Dakota Water Development District, including this one, and just, a week ago, became Dr. Tireno, and know that you would like to. If you have anything to say about that, you might just do so. Okay. Well, what we will do here is kind of tag team this. He's going to open and give you some information, and then I will show some of the results of our meeting, and then he will finish it up. And following that, if you have any questions, you just direct them right to him.
Okay. Dr. Alvis mentioned, my name is Enoch Turuna, and I'm going to talk about the Precambrian crystalline aquifers project that we did. So the purpose of this project was to study groundwater in the hard crystalline Precambrian rock formations of the central Black Hills in Pennington County. And this project has examined water quality for selected elements, which I'm going to explain or show in the next few slides. And also the project has examined the relationships of water quality with the rock types that we have in the central Black Hills and also with the known mineralizations. So the study area is, so it encompasses the Hill City quadrangle on the left side, and this one is the Keystone, the Mount Rushmore quadrangle. So water sampling was conducted within these two quadrangles, which includes from private wells and also from public wells that are existing public wells. So like I said, the objective was to utilize the procedures established previously for characterizing groundwater chemistry, to prepare tables and graphs that compares the rock types and then the water quality, and also to illustrate locations of wells and then their pertinent chemistry on 1 to 24,000 scale maps in GIS formats, and also to identify areas of potential chemical biological problems, and also to publish all these results on the School of Mines aquifers.sdsmt.edu for the public. So the methods of this study, like I said, we did a water quality analysis from private wells and also from public wells. For the private wells, what we did was in that from spring of 2013 and fall of 2013, we went out like every Sunday. We would go out into people's houses and then we would ask them if they would be willing to do this project. Basically, we'll ask them if they are okay for us to sample the water, and then we'll send that to a lab here in town, which is Mid-Continents. So what we did was, so we'll go into their house, inside their bathroom, we'll take a sample from the faucet. So first we'll burn the faucet for about like 10 seconds or 15 seconds to make sure that there are no any organic matters, maybe to kill bacteria, which are like by the on the faucet. So and then after that we'll let it run for 1 minute, and then after that we'll take a sample bottle and then take water from the faucet, and then we'll send those samples to Mid-Continent testing laboratory within 24 hours of the sampling. So like I said, we did the sampling every Sunday, so we give them the samples to Mid-Continent every Monday after the sampling. And also the public water well system data, which was water quality data, was collected from the U.S. Geological Survey and NWIS website, and also from South Dakota DNR, which is Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And also we used other sources, which includes published papers, thesis, and company reports. And the sampling program, like I explained earlier, it was mainly in the Keystone and Hill City areas, and that was performed in the spring and fall of 2013. And for the private wells, we collected or we sampled 91 wells, which for analyzing arsenic, calcium, magnesium, and sulfate, nitrates, iron, and coliform bacteria, which consists of total coliform and fecal coliforms. So the help of the owners was very helpful to sample these waters. And the sampling analysis was done free for the well owners. Dr. Alvis is going to talk about the results.
In the pilot study that we did the previous year, we looked at what was available, what was publicly available, and through those, the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the U.S. Geological Survey, and these black triangles of that area from Mount Rushmore, Keystone, Hill City up to Sheridan Lake. Those are campsites or public water supplies. So we had this as our starting point. What I'll show you here subsequently is the things that were found first last year in these, a little bit about what we had at the start of this. We had worked out through that pilot project of what we needed to work on as far as the elements and the biological factors, and we had these as our starting point. Whoops. So this is that same area. You can see Keystone in the lower right, Hill City. There's a geologic map there which confuses it a little bit, but each of those colors represents a different rock type. Some of them are metamorphosed sandstones, such as the grays. The lavender colored ones are more metamorphosed shales, which get called schists and so forth. And then there are granites down at Mount Rushmore, and to the left there's granites. We don't have to go into detail, but there are those locations that we had previously, some additional ones actually here. And what we discovered on hardness was that, and it didn't take rocket science to do this, people pretty much knew already, but the hardness was pretty great in these public wells. For the private wells, which are shown here, on the left there is the hardness, and it's measured in milligrams per liter, which is a tiny little amount, but nevertheless ones that can have an impact. Hard water, most people would say that you could get by with water up to about 180 milligrams per liter, but above that is getting very hard. It identifies here it as 120, and there's different numbers used by different people. But as you can see here, if we use even 180, you come up, there's 150 horizontal line across there. All of the things in brown on the right-hand side, these are simply segregated according to their values. And by the time we get over to the extreme right-hand side, there's up to 800 milligrams per liter. There's some very, very hard water there. It's not a hazard. Hardness is not a hazard, but it can sure clog up the pipes in your house over a period of time. It leaves rings around the bathtub and so forth. The hardness is a measure of calcium and magnesium that have been dissolved in the water from out of the rocks that contained it, the fractures that contained it. The colors here, and this is quite different on my screen, but if you look on the lower left-hand side there, this is also measured in milligrams per liter. And so going from lighter to darker colors, we can see that it looks like there's kind of a strip from Keystone up past the east side of Sheridan Lake where the water is very hard. Down in the southwest part of this, southwest of Hill City, along the highway towards Custer, there's some very hard water in there. But others in there, a number of areas have greater than 100. Those seem to be, it seems likely that hardness is coming more commonly from those metamorphosed sandstone-like rocks. That is, they've been baked, they've been squeezed, but they have a chemistry in them that is favorable for putting calcium and magnesium in. From the earlier study, we knew some things about iron. You can see lots of little blue dots. The red ones scattered across there are those that have a value of greater than 0.3 milligrams. Iron is not a threat in any particular way, but it certainly can make your toilet bowls red and your bathtubs red and so forth, and most people have treatment systems for that. What we found here, again, there were 91 samples from the private wells. The Environmental Protection Agency has a suggested value. We could argue about that as to whether that's really the one or not, but it's 0.3 milligrams per liter. Everything in brown there has a value greater than that. And you can see that some of these in iron go up. Actually, they go quite a bit beyond 15 here. So those people, some of the samples that we would take, as Phoenix said, we'd take the samples in the afternoon on Sunday, and we did that because we realized that's when people are most likely to be home. By next morning, that water would be the color of tea in some of the, certainly those over there on the right-hand side. They would have a very strong color to them. The areas in which we found the greatest concentrations, and by the way, we're showing you these maps as colors contoured as you see it here, because our agreement with the landowners, the homeowners, was that we wouldn't put any specific location on the map. But in the colors, the darker the color, the higher the content of iron. Obviously around Keystone, and then kind of a propeller, a triangular propeller out from around Hill City. One aspect of this that modifies a little bit, these are obviously where the houses are, and the fact that nothing is shown up there west of Sheridan Lake, for instance, or around Sheridan Lake, doesn't mean that the water there might not have high values. It means that's the Forest Service land and there are no wells there. So this is showing us in part the values that occurred locally simply because that's where we could get the information. The one that was the greatest surprise to us was arsenic. It was known that Hill City, the water was known there not to have much, at least in the city wells. At Keystone, that was definitely not the case. All of those red points in there showed that in public wells, there were, including one of the city wells, there was a problem. Mount Rushmore wells there had the problem enough that they had to put quite a filtration system in at some considerable expense to treat that water. So those are the public water supply systems. It surprised us at how many of the private wells were above that recommended limit of 0.01 milligrams per liter. And again, you might argue about where that goes, but you can see that well out there with the maximum number has 30 times that recommended maximum. That around the world is a serious problem. Arsenic around the world is a serious problem. And I would bet that the people, I hope that the people in that home have some sort of filtration system, which it can be filtered. But that would be, over a long period of time, would probably be a lethal dose if one were drinking that as one's main drinking supply. It certainly could bring on illness. Cancer, for instance, is known in some places. This surprised us to see the extent of the places having high arsenic values. This doesn't show those public wells around Keystone. This would actually be a bit larger if we include that. These are just the private wells. And Hill City, a few private wells still exist there. Certainly over to the east along the highway in the central portion of this area is quite a large extent. If we compare that, let me go back, and if you look, there's Hill City in kind of a diagonal stripe coming from Hill City down across to Keystone, and then to the southwest along the highway to Custer. Here in colors, in various colors, are recognized mining districts. It's kind of hard to see, but there are tiny little specks on there that are just places that the old prospectors dug. But all of those larger circles and so forth are mines. They mine different things. The kind of rose-colored one right in the middle and down at Keystone is gold dominantly. The greens are mostly micas and feldspars from the pegmatite mines. Up in the right-hand side, there's gold and silver and even some copper. So there's a pretty extensive mining print on this. One of the minerals that commonly goes along with, especially the gold mines, but with others, is called arsenopyrite, which, as the name implies, has arsenic in it, and when it rusts, it gives off sulfur, gives off iron, and it gives off arsenic. And so if we look, if you kind of keep those, especially the pink ones, whoops, sorry, go back here, there's a very strong association here of these with mining districts. How do we get private land within the forest? Well, you have an old mining claim, and people were now building their homes on those mining claims, and the mining claims are where the arsenic is, so it's not a surprise that we would be seeing this. Sulfates, on the other hand, only a couple of wells out of the 91 had sulfate levels above the recommended 250. The So for as anybody from the center part of the state knows that got your water out of wells out there, it has a rotten egg smell, and it can perhaps upset your tummy, but it's not a threat. And the good news is here that there were only 2 wells out of this that we found. They were down in the Keystone area. Okay. The nitrates, which nitrates can be a problem in that, especially for babies. An increase in nitrate content can cause death amongst babies in some way. These are the last year's results, and we can see that there are some bigger circles in there that represent higher values. But in fact, one of the neat things about this is that with only 4 exceptions, none of the wells out of the 91, well, only 4 out of 91 actually had values that exceeded the EPA recommended amount. Now, a second thing to comment on, that EPA standard does not apply to private wells. If someone has a well such as those on the right that exceed that, they are not mandated by law to have to do anything about it. It might be good common sense in some cases, but the public water wells would have to deal with that. The private ones are not required to. And so you can see scattered around, this would basically, each one of those circles would represent just one well. It shows a bigger area than probably would need to be, but it's a part of the method of contouring that we chose here, that Dr. Price chose for this. Another that need to be potentially of concern has to do with coliform bacteria. The coliform bacteria, apparently, according to, I wish Dr. Davis was here because he understands this better than I, but he says a bug walking across a glass, if you sample that, you could end up with a hit for coliform bacteria. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any problem, but it's one that you kind of want to watch. And in this case, on the wells on the right-hand side, we see that fecal coliform bacteria in private wells, that represented about 15% of the wells, a bit higher. We went back on some of those and resampled them to be sure that it wasn't an error or wasn't a sampling error or that the lab missed it. All that really says is that there is a show. There could be one fecal coliform in there, and that makes a check. It doesn't tell us what percentage it is. The upper part there shows that's for private wells. 49% of private wells tested for positive for total coliforms. And surprisingly, according to what we found from the literature, 94% of the public wells tested, 94%. And although on the public wells for fecal coliform, there are only three examples that we could find for sure, they all had fecal coliform. I don't think that sample is big enough to carry us very far, but it does show, and they have to treat that, and the water there is okay. Let me pause here for a second. Any questions about things up to now? Yes, sir.
On these public wells, were you testing as they came right out of the ground, or were they entering the treatment plant, or were they coming out of the treatment plant?
Yeah, I should have said this. All of these wells, both public and private, this has to be before they go through a treatment plant. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah. Did you hear?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Did you retest? I mean, you talk about retesting. Did you, except in those circumstances, you only tested samples one time?
That's correct. Yeah, these are all just one shot. Just one shot. Yeah. The cost per test for what we did was $100 each, and so we were trying to cover as many as we could. We got 91 wells. 3 or 4 of them were tested twice because we had those coliform, those fecal coliform hits, so they did get tested twice. Amongst the public wells that we were able to get to, some of those have been tested repeatedly, so there were a lot of values on those.
The private landowners received copies of all
Yes.
the tests?
Yeah, absolutely. At the start, they signed a consent form for us, and the agreement was that they would never, no one would ever know what their values were, and we would mail back to them a copy, which we've done.
See any correlation with the shallower wells with the higher concentration throughout the, or did you know?
We don't know for sure where the water's coming from in the wells, even though some wells are drilled several hundred feet deep. The water's coming from high up, but they use the well itself sort of as a tank. And so we couldn't, so far we've not been able to do that. Okay. So here is the locations, sort of a cloud-like view of the locations where there were total coliforms. And if we look at the areas where the fecal coliform occurs, it's obviously a match. It's pretty much coming in those same places. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Trinity, and he'll go again.
Okay, the conclusion from our work, the arsenic, it showed a high concentration of arsenic appear to be associated with the Precambrian meta-Greywacke formations, and also the arsenic also appears to be generally correlated with the mineralized zones, as Dr. Alvis showed. And also for the total coliform bacteria, only about half of the samples showed total coliform results, positive results. And for the fecal coliform bacteria, about 15% of the samples from the private wells showed fecal coliform bacteria. For the nitrate, higher nitrate levels appear to be spatially or geographically related or correlated with the highest densities of fecal and total coliform bacteria. And also, the median and the mean concentrations of the nitrates were 5 to 10 times as great where fecal coliform bacteria were present, compared to samples where fecal coliform bacteria were absent. So, as a conclusion, we would like to thank you for the board for supporting this project the last couple of years. And as we have indicated earlier on the previous slide, on the first slides, all our results are found on the aquifers.hsmt.edu. This is our website. But the results that we have so far, the maps that we showed, we have a demo of the website. It's not already running, but we'll upload it in the next couple of weeks. But I have it here, the demo, what it's going to look like. So I'll open up here real quick.
So if general public wanted to find this information, if they just went to School of Mines website, there would be links that they would be able to find it without knowing exactly those links.
Yes, exactly. Let me go back here.
I would modify that to say I wish it were not so, but the School of Mines website can be sometimes a little hard to but yes, if you just type in aquifers, SDSMNT, I think that would probably take you there.
So this is the website where you can find even our previous works that we did regarding aquifer vulnerability and susceptibility. But the work that we presented is not up yet, but it will be uploaded probably the next few weeks.
Did the last one come up?
Yeah, I was going to show that first. So this is the other one. So this is the demo of what the website is going to look like once it's ready. And let me turn on the layers. And
so all of those things that we just showed you will be present here. This is not online yet, but within the next 2 weeks we'll get this online.
Yeah.
And
And like here on the left side, you have the list of layers or the list of elements that we tested for fecal coliform, total, nitrates, sulfates, iron, arsenic, hardness, and historic mining areas. For example, for this one, we have arsenic showing the distribution of arsenic within this area. And you can turn it off, and then you can turn on any of these layers that you want, say, maybe hardness. We can turn on the hardness, and you can see the areas where there is a hard water. And the same goes for iron here. You can turn it off and then turn it on, and you can be able to see where there are high hits for iron.
Can you overlay the iron and the arsenic?
Yes, that we can do that. The color can be like, colors are not like matching up, but you can do that as well. So.
Is that through an ArcView application?
Huh?
Is that through an ArcView?
Yes. This is ArcGIS online actually, yeah. Okay. So we created the map on ArcGIS and then we uploaded on ArcGIS online. And here I can turn on the nitrate areas like and the total coliform. Basically.
So can you scan, go back and take us out a little bit?
Okay, yeah, sure.
I think we see it.
Okay, let me go back here.
And then would you go back and do that again, just the nitrates, to show them just nitrates first?
Okay, yeah. So this one is...
There's the 4 hits for nitrates. Now total coliform.
They line up.
Exactly
all
the same
on the
place.
same space. Now the fecal coliform.
Exactly the same location. So once the website is ready, you can be able to look at all those things.
So Dave, would this be vital information for you to have?
Absolutely, it'd be helpful.
Okay.
I have a question. It says areas of concern, so is that, like for the nitrate, is that where it was 10 milligrams per liter or higher only?
This
how do you,
map?
or for iron, they don't really have,
Okay, let me go back to...
like turn on hardness or something, I mean, is it,
Okay.
how do you define areas of concern, I guess is my question.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to the PowerPoint.
You're looking for values for those, is that? Yeah.
How will the public know? I mean, they look at that area of concern,
Okay.
and the whole map is covered, so is the whole thing an area of concern?
Let me go back here. Let me go back to the arsenic.
Well, the other question is, do you anywhere show where all the sample sites are?
No.
No, that's what they can't do.
So then nobody can say, well, okay, so I'm safe in this area, because they don't know whether or not there was a sample.
There's a disclaimer that we will have on here. Even in those areas that show a high incidence, that doesn't mean every well there has it. It's a site-by-site thing, and so you have to have your water tested. But this would tell you, if I'm moving over into that area, I really want to be thinking about so-and-so. But in order to maintain their privacy, we can't show the locations.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if I move into an area, if I want to go into an area where you have nothing shown,
That's correct. That's a good point. It
I
doesn't
still
mean
don't know
there's
anything.
That's right.
There's no
And
data.
that's a problem of having the privacy issue.
So in one respect, we've got a whole bunch of useless information.
I don't think it's useless.
Well, it is to
Anyone
some
living in those
people.
areas, it's not, or buying in there, it's not useless.
Right, yeah.
But in other areas, we simply, there's no data. And
Right,
that's a good
that's-
point. We need to make that more clear.
Right, that's the point I want to make sure is made clear, so that people know, even though we have this data, it's not all inclusive.
Yeah, the sampling is not equal across this whole area.
Right.
And so that could give a false impression.
So maybe the thing you could do is
the chair, if we can do that.
indicate we have sampling in this area and show where the general area of the wells are
So we have
without...
an outline of the wells areas.
Right, you know, I don't say pinpoint the wells, but kind of show the general area where the samples were.
Yep.
Without identifying them, so that somebody up around Sheridan Lake, let's say, where there were no samples, know that this area was not sampled.
That's a good point. It works everywhere except there's an isolated, just one cabin out there somewhere and you got a bullseye around it. But yes, I hear what you're saying.
As far as the study goes,
Yeah, but if you have that bullseye, a fairly big bullseye, people may not know it's just one cabin. That's true. That's true.
as far as the study goes, with the volunteers, well systems, is this the largest study that you've done?
I'm sorry, with what?
As far as, with all your volunteers that you've got, is this one of the larger studies you've done, getting information, or?
Yes, it is.
So, do we have got more information than we've ever had before?
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not saying the information is useless. I'm saying to some people, it may be useless. But, so what I'm saying is, let's do what we can to make it useful to more people. Yeah, there were only 4 or 5 people that said no to us when we came to ask them. And so this, you probably may know more about it than I, but this is probably for an area about, is almost as unique, is it? Getting this much information for?
I think it's very unique. Yeah, most areas have not had this type of work or that kind of focused sampling done. So it's very valuable. I mean, it's not complete because you can't guarantee total coverage and participation, but boy, it's really super valuable data. I mean, if you're going to do something like Dave is planning on doing, I mean, this kind of existing data is incredibly valuable.
I wonder if we just had a map that showed the location of private land without anything else, just this is where private land is, and that's where these wells have to be. Well, there's
a county map.
There's already maps.
Yeah,
that just bring that map in. Bring that map in and show it. That would show where the. I'm going to say the Forest Service maps already show that. Yeah, and that would be another way, more or less, of getting that outline that you were talking about. As long as we explained the significance of that. Yeah, because a lot of them even show where all buildings are.
That's right.
After you sent the letters out, did you receive any request on what can I do with the people that had high concentrations?
We did not. We sort of told them, I think in that letter we told them that you could look at certain sites. We had certain places for them to go to find information.
I appreciate all the data, and I think it's one thing that I like seeing doing when we do a study. It's providing a very valuable tool to the public, getting the samples back, but also identifying something. And the way you're presenting it, I really appreciate that. You guys did an outstanding job, in my view. So thank you very much.
Yeah. We still hope this next fall in Hill City and perhaps Keystone to have a public meeting in which we will share this, what we found with anyone who wants to show up.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sir?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Before you have that public meeting, go to the Hill City city meeting and the Keystone City meeting and brief the brief them on that.
Yeah. Are those weekly or monthly?
Hill City's every 2 weeks and Keystone is every 2 weeks on the opposite.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I think Hill City's first and third and Keystone second and fourth. On Mondays.
We'll do that. We really want to thank you. We're very proud of this.
If you invite the Purveyor newspaper, they'll come.
What's that?
Purveyor will come if you invite them.
Okay.
They're out of Hill City.
Yeah.
It's a Hill City paper, and it prints Keystone, but they'll send a gal up there to.
Yeah, because that may well open some people's eyes.
It might do.
We hope so. And hopefully open minds as well. Well, that happens sometimes too.
The other thing I'd like to see is that, Denise, is this something we would put out on our internet site for access to us, but also for the public?
We can put a link to their site. Certainly.
Well, again, thank you. We're proud of this, and we think you all should be proud of it too, because I think this is a help to our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's come to my attention that we have some folks that have been patiently waiting for 3.5 hours to say a couple words. Would it be okay if we let them?
No, definitely.
Oh, okay.
Before we continue on, I didn't know that.
They got to wait another hour.
I think the other items are going to go pretty quick, so definitely, I have no problem.
That'd be all right.
Get the rest of the board.
Sure,
no
yes.
problem.
Thank you. Sorry you missed Gina not being able to speak. She had to leave. And I thank you for that. I can't wait for you to get it up on the website so we can see the old mines and the arsenic. That's really good. Love for you to do it down south a little bit further. Study. My name's Cheryl Rowe, and I just want to state my concern for a proposed ISL uranium mining project, the Dewey Burdock site. Although it's located in the southern hills, my concern is the impact it would have on the Madison Aquifer, which Rapid City relies on heavily. We will rely on this aquifer even more as Rapid City grows, as it's growing at a pretty steady pace these days. I am also quite concerned for the quality of the water in the aquifer if the project ever does proceed and the waste is injected down into that lower aquifer. I'm also concerned that a lobbyist representative of the foreign company is ever so present whenever there is a discussion about water. He did leave, but I find that very unsettling.
That was that guy right there?
Yeah, Mr. Manan. He's the lobbyist for Power Tech. And whenever there's any water issue, they're always present. They've asked for a lot of water usage from the Madison, anyway, so I just want to throw out a concern as a Rapid City resident, landowner, and Meade County landowner. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I think the next couple items will go pretty quick. Just a quick update on the Canyon Lake Restoration Project. That's moving forward, as Director Richard indicated. I was at the Rapid City Public Works Directors. We wanted to talk to them about as being part of this subcommittee, or sub-working group, trying to get funding and making sure that we're trying to do things right with the Canyon Lake cleanup. We went to the Public Works people to talk to them about the additional funding and the fact that West Dakota put up $50,000 and we're looking for match. Next, that was put on the agenda for the Rapid City Council. There was discussion on that, and to make it real short and quick, the City Council approved a provision to have the Public Works people to seek $100,000 to do this project right, for not only matching, but to reach the $260,000 target to clean it out. So the Terry Walter store has been directed to seek funding, find funding in the city funds to get that match. And my job was to identify what West Dakota had approved to them. So that's in a nutshell. We're continuing on with our working group to develop not only get funds for that project to clean out the lake, but also to do 2 enhancements up in Lower Creek for fish habitat. So that's continuing, and we'll continue with that. Does anybody have any questions on that? All right. The next item is the Didimo, and on, oh gosh, April 27th. Dr. Kunza came here and gave a presentation. It was a really good presentation. We had quite a few people from the public attending, a lot of good questions. And again, in a nutshell, her project that she's doing, she's going to have almost like a snowball of nitrate and nitrogen and phosphorus that she's going to put once a month into the creek up by Pactola, and it's virtually nothing. And I actually asked her, is that enough for you to do your study? And she said that it was, and that she's really actually looking for low concentrations. She's studying worldwide, the Didimo up in Montana and other places in the world. And so that was a very interesting talk, and very enjoyable, very educational. the state was here. The state obviously, gave approval for him to do it because he wanted the concentrations into the creek and stuff, and he wanted to listen to the public input and our input. And that was given, and we did not have a quorum to take any action. And so that, I guess that was telling me that, because I was the only one there.
Can I say something for the record?
Oh, sure.
I apologize for not being there. I wrote the wrong date on the calendar and had a brain fart. So, I apologize for that.
Oh yeah, no need to apologize. It was good information and passed it on. I didn't know if we were going to try to take some type of action there or not, and I didn't know if we needed to. It was just kind of a public information thing, and it didn't concern me up front, and after that presentation, it didn't concern me less on that. So.
Yeah, I had a conflict.
I just had a brain fart.
Conference for me.
There's a good chance I might not have been here today.
Sorry about that. Any questions on the Ginny Mo? I would imagine that she may come in front of us to ask for funding to continue her research, and we'll have her rehash a little bit what she's doing, because you may or may not agree with it. Part of her concept is she's not so certain that Didimo is not causing a problem up in the waters, and the fly fishermen were very vocal about that. But anyway, she's studied at other places, and she's not so certain that animal thrives on low nutrients. She thinks it may thrive on any nutrients and maybe part of the biosystem. But some people don't like it because it obviously covers up the fish food, and so it lowers your fish population. But so I wanted to relay that as well, because that came out. And it brought about a lot of interesting discussions. Manager's report.
It's there for your approval or your perusal, whatever. Listed the meetings that I've attended and the district area projects. The only thing that I really want to point out is at the bottom of page 2. I left a little note. Before every meeting, I request information from the technical assistance providers, Black Hills Council of Local Governments and Midwest Assistance Program. I ask for a summary, a list of the projects they have out in our district, a summary of the projects, the status of the projects, and I get nothing back. And so I cannot adequately relay to you all the projects that are ongoing or in our district. And I guess I don't know how best to proceed, if we should have the chairman.
Let me help you out.
Okay.
I'm looking for a motion to write a letter, and we'll send it to have the board review it, and my signature requesting that information from those entities. I'm not sure if they'll carry weight, but at least we can formally ask it from them. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We got a motion to approve.
You did, and I second.
And seconded from Jasper. Any further discussion?
Go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Does that
Thank
work?
you. That will work. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one question, Denise. Are these all for West Dakota, or is RCAC in here?
Hold on, let me look.
On these,
RCAC, that's been an ongoing project for, I've been working with these communities for a long time, and we finally have a light at the end of the tunnel. Countryside is also a RCAC project. The Canyon Lake, of course, is West Dakota. Cedar Gulch, that is West Dakota. That came on board about a year ago, and there's really been no action. It's kind of one of those, the state applies a little bit of heat, and the communities are like, okay, what should we do? And then it dies down for a while, and so I don't believe in leading the horse to water and raising the bucket up for their snow. So we'll keep you informed. But at this time, there's no action on the Cedar Gulch. And it's actually Cedar Gulch 1 and 2, and unfortunately they won't combine. I don't know. Cedar Gulch 1 doesn't pay anything for their water. So if they, yeah, anyway. But yes, that's...
Any more questions on the report?
So the manager attended Lawrence County Commission meeting was RCAC?
No, that is West Dakota. That was in conjunction. I went up with Dan Driscoll, and that's to try to gain support for the groundwater modeling project that we are sponsoring.
Did you have a question, Tina?
I did, sir, thank you. Regarding your district area projects, Rapid City East Rapid Water Expansion Project, can you elaborate on that for me?
So many of the communities out east of, it's between Rapid Valley and the airport. These are a lot of different entities, subdivisions. One of them, Mesa View Water Association, is a failing system. It's a low to extremely low income community, and they have very poor water quality, and they've really been struggling, and their water system is basically, it's influenced by surface water, and that surface water comes in the form of an irrigation ditch. So every time it rains and the irrigation ditch fills up, they have good water pressure. The other area is Valley View Homeowners Association. That's a publicly owned water system, and it has been out of EPA compliance since the early 2000s. And it's a, so these entities have all been looking for a solution to their own individual water systems. Terracotta also has fallen out of compliance a couple of times. But there are all these small systems, and it just hasn't, there hasn't been a viable solution. And for a long time, Rapid City was kind of a closed door, but with the new administration, Rapid City had to run a water line out to the airport to increase fire flow. So we started the dialogue with them, and because of that, they decided they would upsize the line, and then they could tie in these communities, recognizing that it's an area that Rapid City's probably going to grow and expand, or is going to see growth, and they want it done in a smarter fashion. And instead of having more small communities develop with poor water quality and quantity, Rapid City has seen it as an opportunity to help. So it's become a more viable project to get these small systems off their own individual water systems and regionalize them into a larger water system. And not just South Dakota, but states in general like to see larger regionalized projects, because it's just easier. The larger regionalized systems have better technical, managerial, and financial capabilities, and so that they know that their residents are getting safer, clean drinking water.
So with this expansion project, is that going to be forcing all homeowners in this area to comply to having water, getting rid of their private wells and stuff like that, for any of the people that have been out there for 40 or 50 years?
What is going on is that we have met with the individual communities, Terracotta, Mesa View, Valley View, Longview. They are all wanting a more viable water system. Granted, there's a lot of area in Longview, so in order for this to be a project that we could move forward on, for it to be a viable project for Rapid City, because this isn't going to increase the water rates for Rapid City residents. It's not fair that Rapid City residents increase their water rates in order to help this area out here. So what has happened is that the cost is going to be put primarily on these homeowners and future development that is going to take place. So in order to make the numbers work, these people had to buy on. These communities had to buy on. these communities are in such need and want safe, clean drinking water that all of their residents have said yes to this. So Terracotta and Valley View, I mean, it was just overwhelming response. Valley View, I believe, had to have 70 or 75% of their homeowners buy onto this project. Terracotta had all of their residents basically signed a petition supporting the letter of support that they had sent to Rapid City. So it's not, but as far as Longview Sanitary District, no, it's not forcing everybody to tie on, because it can be a tremendous cost to the homeowner if they live a quarter mile off of the road.
And is this, do you know if Rapid City is planning on trying to annex these particular areas into the Rapid City area?
Rapid City's policy on annexation is, first of all, you have to be contiguous. Second of all, the current mayor said he can't speak for future mayors, but he has no intent on annexing this area. And they're not contiguous, but the policy that is in place is if they are providing service, and all these communities know this, but if they are being provided service, utility service from Rapid City, if a time comes that they are contiguous and Rapid City wants to annex, they have to annex, or their utility rates go up to 300% instead of 150%. All of these communities are aware of that. Before this, the city starts tying into these systems, there will be an MOU for each of these entities to sign in agreement, basically stating just that as well.
And do you have contact numbers for these entities?
I do, but I don't know if I can give them out. I would have to take your information and give it to them. Or you can talk to the City of Rapid City themselves.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions on the manager's report? The next item is anything from directors.
I have. Go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to see if we could get with our web provider and just see what it's going to cost us to expand the capacity of our website so we can put our meetings on the website for public review anytime we want to go.
I will check into that.
If I talk to Denise about that, I'm with you. Let's have her research it, and we'll put it on the agenda item next week or next meeting.
July.
I'm on the same boat with you. I'd like to see her even have more capability of editing. So we'll look into that too. Because right now we send what we want done. But there's companies out there that'll build it so we can edit it to a certain extent. So good comments. Thank you.
Let's move into 20%.
Did you guys?
Back April 18th, the Board of Minerals and Environment apparently looked at adopting a conflict of interest policy. And since that was a question that's come up on this board in a time or two, I thought, it might be appropriate for us to have a conflict of interest policy. Our policies address it kind of tangentially a little bit. So I went ahead and contacted Roxanne Geed, who's the attorney for the Board of Minerals and Environment. I had her send me what they're proposing in terms of an administrative rule, and also what's the South Dakota statute on it, which is SDCL 6-1-17. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and do what I would propose to add to our policies and have that available for the next meeting.
Sounds good. So we could make that an agenda item too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sounds good. Anything else? Items from the public? Items from the public? The last one here.
We have a public. Yeah.
And may I make?
Nothing, Tina?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay.
May I make one comment? The other item, just so that you know, that will be on the July agenda, is it's that time of year to start the budgeting process. So you will have a draft budget for 2015. And how that works is it'll be on July's meeting, it will be noticed in August, and then September is the public hearing on the budget. That has to be approved by October 1. There you go. That's it. That's all I have.
Now we need a motion for adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Second?
So I think I can just kind
Okay, all in
of...
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.